Good morning. The Finance Committee meeting is called to order at 9:36, April 17th. At this time, I will ask for a motion on today. Oh, all members are present, that being Alderwoman Finlayson and Alderwoman O'Neill. And at this time, I'll receive a motion for a revised agenda.
Madam Chair, I'll move approval of the agenda with the change from the SA General Fund to occur after the department presentation.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Yeah, just for the record, we're going to continue some discussion after the second budget hearing. At this time, I'd like a motion to approve the meeting minutes of April 17th.
Madam Chair, I think we need to postpone action on those minutes as
Looks like it, yeah.
they're still being
Posted.
transcribed, I believe.
Okay.
They will be ready after the essay, so maybe we can move
get
that
back
to
to
the end
that.
of the agenda.
Okay, all right then. So at this time, we'll start general discussion, which includes the department presentations on the mayor's budget, starting with the Office of Emergency Management. For those who weren't here yesterday, we're allowing an hour time slot, assuming that we'll have no more than a 45-minute presentation with 15 minutes for questions or thereabouts. So, Mr. Director Simmons, if you could introduce your panel and start.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the Finance Committee. Thank you for the attention to the budget and budget request of the Office of Emergency Management. Great to be here. I'm Kevin Simmons. I'm the Director of Emergency Management, and to my left, I have Dave Mendel. He's the Deputy Director. I'll be giving a general overview of our performance measure progress, our department structure, our FY23 highlights, as well as our budgetary issues and requests. And I want to discuss grants, which is a big part of what we do as well. So I'll try to fit that in that time frame. Next slide, please. I'll start with our mission statement. City of Annapolis Office of Emergency Management provides vision, direction, and subject matter expertise in order to coordinate the city's all-hazard emergency preparedness response, recovery, and mitigation efforts and develop a overall culture of safety. And this mission statement is important because it helps our OEM staff see the meaning and purpose of their work by giving them clear reasons on how their job benefits a larger goal. Next. So this is our overall objectives. There are 6 of them, and these objectives focus on keeping the city of Annapolis prepared. They address obtaining funding for critical infrastructure projects. The objectives monitor the effectiveness of our substance use disorder programs. And finally, they work to standardize how the city manages emergencies, disasters, and crises, and special events. So I'm not going to go into them now because they are part of the performance measures, and I'll hit them there. Talk more about that now. So let's talk about, next slide, the OEM team. As you know, we're a small lot, but we're a mighty lot. Leadership, we have myself, the director, and the deputy director. In planning, we have 1 senior emergency management planner and 1 emergency management planner. Training and outreach, we have 1 exercise training and community outreach coordinator, and then we have 1 grant specialist position. Next slide, please. And this is what the OEM family looks like. As you can see down on the lower line, total right, we have a vacancy in the grant specialist. That's been vacant for about 3 weeks now. We're currently trying to hire that position. Next slide, please. So the breakdown with these employees, the exempt in red is myself. Civil service is the deputy director and the emergency management grant specialist. And civil service, but grant funded, it doesn't come from the coffers of the City of Annapolis is the Senior Emergency Management Planner, the Emergency Management Planner, and the Exercise Training Outreach Coordinator. Next slide. So in my budget book on page 80, there was an error on the staffing summary. I just want to make sure that you're clear on that staffing summary. So this is the correct one. The Director of Emergency Management, exempt, grade A20. Deputy Director, Civil Service, A8, A14. The Senior Emergency Management Planner, which I think was noted wrong in the staffing summary in the budget book, is a 13. The Emergency Management Planner is a 12, A12 in their Civil Service. The Training Outreach Coordinator is a 12, and then we have the Emergency Management Grant Specialist, which is an A8. So we have an Assistant Project Coordinator that is a part-time position that deals with substance use disorder, and that's a grant-funded position. And then we have the COVID Logistics Officer, which is also a grant-funded part-time position, contractual. That brings our total number of positions to 8. It was noted that we had 9, and it noted a incident management team position, which is no longer there.
Excuse me, could we just have concurrence from the city manager that that correction is necessary? Or, and, yeah, hi.
Hi, Katie Conley, Budget Manager. They are correct. We will give you a revised page.
Okay, good, thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
Not a problem. And this is the Office of Emergency Management functions. If you go down to protection, prevention, mitigation, response, recovery, and resiliency, here's our main program functions: grants management, planning, training and exercise, outreach, public information, and opioid intervention teams of substance use disorder. Should be another one in there, operations, that's missing. And on the other side, Emergency Operations Center, which you're all familiar with, all of you have served time there. We have the Joint Information Center and the Annapolis Call Center as a part of the Emergency Operations Center. Ooh, accomplishments. You want me to go over all of these? It's a lot of them. So we co-chaired with the county OEM a summer study work group to make recommendations for implementation of a disaster recovery fund for the state of Maryland. You guys helped out with that with a resolution. That went a long way when we presented it to the General Assembly. I appreciate your help on that. The group was formed as a result of the Senate Bill 310 and House Bill 490 in 2022. The charge of the group is to recommend and research to the General Assembly an establishment of a disaster relief fund. So if you can remember back in the tornado, we had problems getting some of our low-income, underserved folks some help, and we didn't get some help from the federal government. What this disaster relief fund will do is to make those funds available quicker and faster to make everybody whole. We continue to provide case management support for the remaining victims. So here it is, a year and 7 months later, and we're still dealing with the tornado. We're still doing case management here in the Office of Emergency Management. Up yesterday, we got calls on this. I think the Alderwoman, Rhonda Pendell Charles, has sent me more information on some folks that are still hurting down there and trying to recover. OEM staffed and facilitated the annual citywide preparedness exercise last December. We sent OEM personnel to help Baltimore City by deploying staff to assist emergency operations for the mass drinking water contamination event. Next slide. We support Food Friday program, which originated in the Office of Emergency Management in our lobby there. OEM continues to monitor and respond to the effects of COVID-19. OEM served as primary planners and operational managers along with state agencies for the 2023 inauguration of Governor Wes Moore. We were part of the Unified Command, which oversaw 1,000 people that day and 33 agencies. 3 OEM staffers are now certified as associate emergency managers, and that's Chris, and certified emergency managers, MK and Dave. That's a professional designation recognized by the International Association of Emergency Managers. Proud of them for that. OEM continues to support city special events and public safety planning and coordination. Next slide, please. We support resiliency efforts and submitted FEMA grant applications for city dock and four stormwater projects. We organized and planned October 22 visit to the Netherlands, dedication of the Netherlands delegation to address resiliency. You all were a part of that. I think we went out in the harbor, gave them a tour, came back here and exchanged ideas. That was pretty good. OEM maintained operations of the winter relief program at the Stanton Center. No one dies from exposures on the street of Annapolis, and they have not since we've had that program. OEM, in coordination with the Annapolis Police, Annapolis Rec and Parks, and the Military Bowl Foundation, sponsors a one-day Patriot Point for children in Annapolis's low-income and underserved communities. We've done that twice now. OEM continues to manage substance use disorder program with proven results, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later in my program. Next slide. FY23 performance measure successes. This is what we did good in FY23. There's more, but these are some of the top. Comparing 2021 versus 2022, the city had 22% decrease in non-fatal overdoses and an 11% decrease in fatal overdoses. I'm really proud of that. And that's attributed to the fire department, police department, mayor's office, and office of emergency management. We're completing, which is going to come before the council for adoption, a 2023 hazard mitigation plan update that reviews 10 existing projects and recommends 6 more in the next 5 years. And this is important because if we don't have a updated hazard mitigation plan, we can't apply for the FEMA grants and all. We work directly with state legislators to propose a legislation that improves the disaster recovery, as I spoke about in the previous slides. Next slide, please. All right, here's where we had our challenges. We didn't do everything perfectly. So OEM could not pursue projects due to a lack of capacity. We were stretched thin. We missed out on a $56,000 grant opportunity with the Maryland Department of Emergency Management. We were unable to help some of our partners and private property owners to partner on a grant application to reduce flood risk. Public Works came to us for assistance on a $300,000 grant, and we were not able to help them because we just didn't have the bandwidth at the time. We need to update some of our existing operational plans. We have to prioritize which ones get updated, which ones have to wait a little while. And we want to create some new plans, but we were unable to do that, creating additional plans such as training and exercise plans and recovery plans, and others that are necessary components for readiness. This is something that's been on our plate that we were unable to do, is complete a cyber disruption plan with MIT and provide training and exercise on that plan. And ongoing is to adopt the National Incident Management System, NIMS, an ICS within the city of Annapolis. Incident Command System is what ICS means, within the city of Annapolis, and integrate these systems into public safety operations. So we were not too successful in doing those things. So let's talk a little bit about our performance measure goals. We have 4. We want to build a robust level of preparedness and recovery to ensure the city's ability to adapt to changing conditions and to withstand disruptions in the aftermath of a catastrophic event. Number 2, we want to mitigate the loss of life and property by floods, hurricanes, snowstorms, and other environmental emergencies. 3, we want to support the reduction of the impacts of substance use disorders, overdoses. And 4, we want to provide a system of prevention and response measures to make it difficult to achieve a terrorist attack or a cyber disruption. So that's our 4 performance measure goals. So if you take them one by one, and we talked about the objectives, for the first goal, if you look at the 2 bullet points, our objectives there is to maintain the capacity to respond and coordinate quickly and effectively to any situation with or without notice, to support city offices and departments in their efforts to increase their emergency support function capabilities. And you all know what emergency support functions are, like wrecking parts. They do what they do every day, but their emergency support function is sheltering, et cetera. Next slide, please. For our second goal, which I listed, the objectives are to lessen the impact of future disasters, protecting our citizens, residents, visitors, and assets against the greatest threats and hazards in a manner that allows our interests, aspirations, and our way of life to thrive. And then support the city's efforts to obtain funding for impactful, critical infrastructure projects that incorporate mitigation measures. Goal 3, substance use disorder, overdoses. Continue objectives, continue the OIT, the opioid intervention team, and related programs, monitoring the effectiveness of substance use disorder programs, improve the quality of life and access to services for those with substance use disorders. Next slide. And our goal 4 is to maintain a capacity to respond and coordinate quickly and effectively to any situation with or without notice, establish the National Incident Management System and the Incident Command System as a standard to manage incidents in the city of Annapolis, and integrate these systems into public safety operations. So that's the end of our performance measures. So in your rubric, you wanted to know short-term goals. So some of my short-term goals would be to reevaluate and prioritize emergency management's core mission areas and responsibilities based on our current staffing levels and capacity. So I'm down 1 position, we're stretched to the max. So we have to kind of reevaluate and prioritize what's important and then move forward with that. Continue operating programs that have a direct impact on the safety of Annapolitans, including emergency disasters, crisis, substance use disorder, food insecurity, winter relief, and the cooling center. 3 is maintain existing grants and follow through on pending grant applications. And we'll talk a little bit more about grants in a few minutes here. And then 4, provide emergency support functions training to recently hired City of Annapolis leadership, to include the Assistant City Manager behind me. Next slide. So our long-range goals are our performance measures, with the exception of number 3. So number 3 is to increase the city's capacity to plan for and fund and achieve enhanced resiliency measures. And the rest of the long-term goals are captured in my performance measures. Okay, what you all been waiting for, and don't blink or you'll miss it. This is the mayor's proposed FY24 operating budget for OEM. And I put it in this format to make it easier to follow and read. So supplies, we have $5,700, and that's a $200 increase for inflation. Food Friday program, that was an enhancement that we received, that's noted in the budget, that's for $27,000. and that's new for FY24, and we'll talk a little bit about that toward the end of the program. Substance use disorder is not shown in the budget. I've been told that I have something for this, not quite sure what it is as of yet, so that's to be determined. Contract services, to break it down, we have winter relief. That was an enhancement. We have, I think is that right? I think it's 31,000. Is that 21?
Oh, you're right. You're absolutely right.
It should be 31,280. I'm sorry for the error there. And that's a $4,600 increase. Now, we had asked for a $14,600 increase. We got a $10,000 grant a couple of weeks ago, and we're going to apply it to this winter relief, which knocks it down to $4,600. So we're saving the city of Annapolis $10,000 there. Comcast for the EOC, we have $3,100, and that's a $200 increase for inflation. Gmail, $1,020, and that's a $120 increase for inflation. The phone system in the EOC, that was an enhancement. It's not showing in the budget. I received that after the budget was struck. The mayor's budget was struck, and that was for $4,454.35, and that's a new enhancement. And the reason why we have that enhancement, because when OEM was in the fire department paid that. OEM is a standalone agency now, and then we needed that enhancement to pay our phones down in the EOC. Our regular telephone is $2,600. That's a $700 decrease. Copier is $1,600, no change. Vehicle maintenance, $20,500, and that is a $8,200 decrease. Overtime is steady at $2,000. Training and education, we don't get anything for that, and that's okay because we were able to do that with our grant funding. As a matter of fact, not only do we take care of OEM, we take care of a lot of other agencies with that fund, and we can certainly talk about it. And that brings our total operating budget to $89,254.35 plus whatever we receive for substance use disorder. So just to put the pie chart in here to show you that salary and benefits, that's like 80.6% of our budget. Contract services, follow along clockwise, is 9.8% of our budget, and supplies and others is 9.56% of our budget. We have a very, very small budget. And it does not include the final substance use disorder numbers. So the mayor and the state of the city talked about grant ninjas and how grants were so important to the city of Annapolis, and it really, really is. It saves the residents a lot of funding and a lot of money. And the original grant ninja would be Dave Mandel. And I want him to actually talk a little bit about our grants program, which is an important part of the Office of Emergency Management.
Thanks, Director. Dave Mandel, Deputy Director. Good morning. So I've got a few slides on the status of grants in the Office of Emergency Management, but I wanted to mention the overall picture, which is to emphasize the breadth and the depth of our grant funding. It is vast, it is growing, and the Office of Emergency Management has been opening up several avenues of funding for the city in the last few years, and they're continuing to deepen and to diversify. This was our oldest grant chart that we had going back years. We used to be this one chart, and this is all our public safety grant funding. The State Homeland Security Program, the Urban Area Security Initiative Program, the Hazardous Materials Emergency Preparedness Grant Program, Emergency Management Performance Grant Program. All these are traditional public safety funding that goes to fire, goes to police, goes to OEM, goes to public works, and so on and so forth. So we've gotten this for a long time altogether, this type of funding. You can see where it is over the years, about 11.8 million going back 12, 13 years. So it averages about 900 and something thousand per year. Starting in 2018, OEM started receiving and administering substance use disorder grants. As you can see there, we got our biggest grant just last year from the Opioid Operational Command Center. So this is the second avenue of funding that OEM has been able to secure. And as the director mentioned, this funds programs in the police department, in the fire department, in the mayor's office, and through the Office of Emergency Management. All those come through the OEM administered substance use disorder grants. Third avenue of funding is mitigation grants that we have started securing as of about 2015. You can see how this has ramped up dramatically in the last few years. Last year, we got about $3.4 million for the city. The year before that, it was close to $5 million. And we'll talk about where this money is going, but a lot of it's going to city dock. So this is a brand new, I consider it a brand new revenue source in the sense that it really has ramped up in the last few years. You can see the total there on the bottom, almost $10 million above and beyond all the public safety funding that we've received. We've gotten $10 million just in mitigation grants just since 2015, most of it since 2019. So this is a third avenue of funding that OEM has gone out to pursue and secure for the benefit of the city. So here's the summary so far. I've got a couple more things to mention. You see public safety grants, 11.8 million, substance use disorder, 367,000, mitigation grants, 9.8 million. So the total to this point is about 22 million since the director and I have been in the office since about 2010, which is an average annual grants total of about 1.69 million per year. Obviously, this fluctuates a little bit from year to year, and it far outstretches anything in terms of the salaries of OEM staff in terms of the cost of the city. So here's a little bit of a trend line of the grants that we have secured. You can see how it does vary, especially with mitigation grants, because those are the big ticket items, and some years you get them, some years you don't, and some years they can be very large. You can see substance use disorder there on the bottom green line has been fairly steady, give or take, in the last few years. And again, the average total annual is about 1.7 million. So these grants benefit the entire city, not just public safety. We talked about public safety, we talk about mitigation and city dock, and we'll get more into that. But every city department benefits from all the grant funds that OEM secures and administers, from planning and zoning to the mayor's office to MIT, the monthly know before training that you guys get emails about. That's something that OEM pays for through our grants. Sometimes it's not always obvious, but that's something we're involved in. It's just an example. No. I hope you like the training. If not, I never heard of it. But that's another example of things that departments have adopted. Often in some way will relate back to some kind of grant program. HR, planning and zoning, fire, you name it. Variable message signs for public works, all the signs that are in use with all the construction going on right now, many of them are paid through Homeland Security grant funding.
Could I say something?
Of course.
So we talked about training and education as well. So we certainly make sure that we're training and educating to a high extent the city departments. We had the hurricane conference, and we sent members from the police department, from the city manager's office and OEM. We had the overdose conference, the RX conference. We sent members of the police department, the fire department, OEM, and the mayor's office. And upcoming at the last week of May, we're sending folks to the emergency management conference in Ocean City. And that was sending the Office of Law, Harbor Master, OEM, am I missing some folks? Oh, Rec and Parks. We're sending Rec and Parks down there. And we pay for conference fees, we pay for the lodging, we pay for the airfare, and we pay for food, all through these grants.
Don't we need some training, the council members?
I'm glad that piqued your interest. We sent somebody from his office.
We are so overdue.
All right, folks. Continuing on with the just a couple more moments here with the grants. I mentioned mitigation projects. We have received, OEM has secured and received about $6.5 million in federal and state grant funding, specifically for the Compromise Street pumping station, that project that Public Works is developing. We have another $3 million in the hopper from MDE. Actually, I have to double check with them now that the budgets are passed at the state level, because I'm pretty sure that that's going to be officially available, or not available, but at least officially in the budget. We have a $31 million FEMA grant that is submitted and pending review, which could make a major difference for City Dock. The $3.46 million congressionally directed spending announcement, also known as an earmark, that was recently announced at Market House. Emergency Management is putting the application, there's actually a FEMA application process as part of that OEM is leading. The director mentioned a couple weeks ago the new grant we got for $10,000 for winter relief. This is another avenue of funding, a fourth kind of area that the office is opening up for the city. It's under the FEMA Emergency Food and Shelter Program. First time we've ever gotten this grant, and it relieves the city of needing to provide this amount of funding for winter relief this winter. Also pursuing stormwater projects in conjunction with Public Works Stormwater Program Manager. We've got about between $1 and $2 million of stormwater program applications in the hopper for FEMA. We should find out this summer. And sometimes we go beyond emergency management capacity or mission in terms of applying for grants. This year, OEM secured a $3.2 million grant from the U.S. Commerce Department to design City Dock. So we worked through the pandemic. Took about 2 years to pursue and secure this grant. So that's the grant picture for OEM.
So I'll pick it up and talk about the approved enhancements that we have, which is substance use disorder, Food Friday, winter relief, and the phone line cost. So next slide, please. Substance use disorder enhancement, what we asked for is $147,000. We are seeking a grant like we did last year. Last year, you all, the council put forth $70,000 toward substance use disorder. We appreciate that. We had some funding to complement that to the health department's funding that they gave us. But we applied for a grant from the state, which was $189,000. Once we got that grant around June 1st of last year, we declined the $70,000 and we went with the grant. And so we're doing the same thing this year. We applied for a grant about the same amount, $189,000. We'll find out around June if we actually get the grant. However, if we don't get the grant, we still have to go forth with this program. And that's why we're putting an enhancement of $147,000.
Could I interrupt, because
Sure.
it would be hard to get back to this. So, Director Dickinson, what happens to that $70,000 if the director doesn't need it? We put it in as an amendment in the last budget.
And
cycle.
we used some of that for another purpose during the year, but just a bit of it. It might have been for the Food Friday assistance, but there was still some left. And since it's a general fund item, at the end of the year, it's just going to fall to fund balance.
Okay.
And also, we had talked about putting some of the opioid restitution settlements. We're getting bits and pieces in, not a significant amount, putting it aside for these purposes as well.
Oh, where is that in the budget? Sorry.
So we will.
We'll talk about that.
Those funds would be administered through a grant project
Okay.
and separated in that way. They're not budgeted for yet. We've gotten 2 smaller payments this year. We're expecting more to come in, so we don't know what the amount is. And at that point in time, we would come to you with the total and appropriated for these purposes, and probably try to combine it somehow with what they're doing with their substance use disorder grant.
So this enhancement that you have on this slide, is that what, the 147, is that included in the mayor's budget?
What was the question?
There's an enhancement, 147,000, sort of floating on this slide. I'm checking to see if it was included in the budget.
So that's, Katie, that's in the grant fund?
If you look at the grants schedule in the budget book,
Yep,
we have
there.
this in state, we have this in county. So from a general fund perspective, we do not have 147 coming from the city dedicated to this program, because we could get enough funding from the state to cover this program.
Oh, hold on, just,
Even though
yeah.
it is not certain at this time, we didn't dedicate any general fund funding to this project, because if we get grant funding, we wouldn't want to use city funding.
So I'm looking at the grant schedule under Office of Emergency Management, and is that sort of divvied up? I see.
Yes, so you'll want to go to state. You'll see the bulk of the money in state. I think it's 189,000 in state if you combine all the OIT programs.
Proposed under Office of Emergency Management under state.
Yes, ma'am.
Page 29, total Office of OEM is 215,000. But there's that mayor, 61,500. So is that, here we go.
So look at the
not
top
clear.
line there, the 47,500, substance use disorder, that's the one you're looking at on the state's schedule.
It's 47,00005.
And there's
Substance use
8750 on the
disorder.
county schedule.
I see,
Go ahead.
I'm still not clear. Where do we find, well, first, the question is the 147 included in the mayor's budget?
No,
No.
not,
It
no.
is not.
No, we have appropriation authority for the state grant funds of 47,500.
Got it.
215,000.
I'm sorry.
Take all.
Well, let me ask my question then. Where is your Life Matters funding in the budget?
In the
Or
grant schedule.
In the grant schedule?
Page 30.
Okay, page 30.
There's a total of 215,000 potentially coming from the state
Okay.
as the time at the time that we created this book.
Are you looking at, do we look at proposed or expenditures?
So you're going to look at 24 proposed column all the way to the right.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at.
On page 30, OIT, that total for Office of Emergency Management totals 215. I think they've got a potential revised number from the state of about 190 at this time.
So we don't put items, we're not funding this at all. The state is funding it? Is that what you're saying?
It's potentially, it's uncertain at this time.
How do we do potentially? I don't understand that.
Here's what we do. We establish grant budgets during the budget process for those programs that we know, one, we've been awarded, or we're seeking awards for these amounts. And it's a fairly, we know the monies are available, we put them in the budget. If we don't get the grant award, then I, as the finance director, have the authority to reduce the budget to match what we actually received.
These 4 programs have been ongoing, correct me,
Which
Director or
is
Deputy.
why we're competent to put them in there, because we're, the award, I won't say it's certain, but we're fairly confident we would get something under this program because it's been continuing.
I just don't understand why it's not in the budget.
Yeah,
It is,
With
in the
predicated,
grants fund.
yeah, let's clarify that. Let's
It's
clarify that.
budgeted in the grants fund,
Okay.
not in the general fund.
Let's go over it line by line real quickly. Okay, let's all go to page 20. I look
Or
at
30.
29 as far as expenditures.
That's revenues.
I mean, revenue. Is that,
No, I would, the
You go to 30.
appropriation is the spending, the authority to spend, which is on the
authority to
expenditure
spend, so
side.
go to 30. Okay, so under Office of Emergency Management, there's 4 grants related to overdose prevention. So we have the APD SUD in there at $47,500. That's the second line item on the slide. Then we have the mayor at $61,500 for NAM, I assume, and that's the third line item on the slide. Then we have overdose-free Annapolis for $48,000, and that is the fourth item on the slide. And then Your Life Matters, we have $58,000. So for a total of $215,000. So Director, you said if no grant funding is awarded, then you need this enhancement. Can we say that the grant funding is in the budget, therefore he doesn't need the enhancement?
At this time, what we're saying is if he heard from the state and they said, we're not giving you the grant money this year, that's when he would need a source, another source to pay for that.
So isn't that kind of risky that we put it in the budget in,
We have a lot of grants in here for which we have not received a permanent award yet.
right?
But these are ones where we know the program's out there, we're seeking the funding, and we received it in the past,
Okay,
and we're fairly certain of the availability. But a lot of times, we have grants that we'll put in the budget for 100,000, and they'll only give us 90. So then I have to reduce it by the 10, so that we don't spend beyond what we've been granted.
so it's fair to say we have a placeholder, we have a placeholder in the budget, we have the number. If it
Right.
doesn't come through, then we will need the
Some kind of general fund
enhancement.
source.
It's kind of what we did last year, where we didn't know, and we put in the
We put it in
enhancement,
because,
and then he-
yes, there was a question earlier on that we might not get it, so we put it in and didn't need it. It was a surprise.
it's 215, what's the difference? Where's the difference in those two?
So what we did
Oh,
last
yeah,
year,
why is,
and it worked to me, what we did last year is we said, hey, look, here's the funding that we need. We had some funding from the health department, and we went to the council, and the council gave us $70,000. We blended the money that we got from the health department, and then we had that safety net. There's no guarantee I will get this grant. There's no guarantee. I can't say either way. You know, it's a good chance or it's not a good chance, we don't know. Quite frankly, I've never seen these grants 2 years in a row go to a municipality, so we're taking a big risk.
So-
And I like your term, risk.
so,
So what I would like to see is if we could get that 147,000, which is considerably less than the 200 some, that gives us a cost-conscious budget for substance use disorders, because it's hard for me to go to the fire department and say, well, we might get this, so you can start your planning. Police department, we might get this, so you can start your planning. Mayor's office, we might get this, so you can start your planning. I'd like to have something there where I can say, hey, look, at a minimum, you're gonna get 147,000, so start your planning, and then July 1st, we'll go into these programs.
I understand that. I just don't know the best fiscal way to handle that, because you're going to have 4 grants that are sort of floating in the budget. But I'd have to look for Director Dickinson for advice, or the city manager.
No, I also wanted to mention that the director's been talking to us a lot about the settlements for the opioid litigation. I don't have a number off the top, and we can get some estimates to you. The origins of the opioid settlements were for costs incurred. That's how the damages were created. We've been getting 2 or 3 notices of not a lot of money, but in the 50 to 10, each one of them below 3 figures. And he's come to us about dedicating that to this source, and the director and I are going to do that. But we'll get you the amounts. I don't want to just flippantly give you a number, but that'll be in addition to.
So the problem, if I understand it, is Director Simmons doesn't feel comfortable earmarking those grants right now for his efforts, which cost $147,000. Therefore, he's asking for the enhancement so he can proceed with those efforts. Okay, we understand.
Yes.
And just with my understanding, and I'll defer to the finance director, I think we have 55,000, a little over 55,000, the opioid restitution fund. Would that be correct?
I think that is the amount that we've received to date. We do have other funds coming to us, but I have to find those where we've deposited them somewhere and as a holding place, and I'll have to look that up. Plus, we've been notified that we're getting other pieces, but we haven't received them yet. And they're all quite small. They're, together, they wouldn't all total $100,000.
I do want to add, though, that it's my understanding that if we don't get the state money, the county will at least give us $34,000.
That's correct.
That county could be that starting, the planning money that he spoke of.
34, 35?
34.
$34,000.
34.
They just notified us that the other day.
Okay.
And that's only if we don't get the state funding?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I look at county grants under Office of Emergency Management. I'm seeing 35,000.
Yes, ma'am. So I got confirmation from the planner 5 days ago, and they have a revised amount of 34.
Okay, cool.
At the time that we got the information, it was
That's fine.
preliminary.
It's only 1,000. Let's keep going.
Well, may I ask, is there a chart that indicates where the funding is coming from so that we can walk the potential funds for this, for example, 34,000?
So on page 3, I'll direct your eyes to the Office of Emergency Management section.
What
That's
page?
potential-
I'm sorry.
Page 30.
That's where I am, okay.
Yep, so midway down the page, there's $215,000 potentially coming from the state for these programs. On page 30, I'm
My
sorry.
question is, there's no indication, that's the page we've been reading from, but there's no indication it's coming from the county, the state, or from,
So we don't,
It says on the title, it's divided up.
okay, so these are all state grants, okay.
yes, ma'am.
And county grants, I assume?
Page 32, at the top, it'll say county
Okay.
grants. And then that total is $35,000 at the time of the book.
Okay, so on page 32, I see the total 35, and you said that's being changed to 34.
Say that last part again, I'm sorry.
It's 35, not 34.
No, it's 34.
That's-
So that's
34,
being
not
changed to
35.
34. Okay. Thank you, sorry. Oops. I'm so glad it wasn't my phone this time.
It's Star Wars. It's my son.
So do we want to continue at this point?
Sorry to interrupt. Yeah, go ahead.
So this slide indicates why this is so important. You know, it's not the time to take your foot off the gas with this as far as substance use disorder is concerned. If you look at 2019, we were down 18.5% from 2018. And during the midst of COVID in 2020, that was our highest numbers and also our highest number of fatals. 28 people died in the city of Annapolis from overdoses, and that was up 22%. Due to the hard work of the 4 entities, the police department, the fire department, the mayor's office, Office of Emergency Management, in 2021, we were able to get those numbers down 32%. And then and in 2022, those numbers still went down 21%. And if you can see the heat map on the right, I'm sorry, all the red dots are overdoses in the city of Annapolis, and all the green is where we've done outreach activity, concentrating on the higher number of overdose locations. So we did apply for the $189,000 grant from the state, and it's up in the air. If we get that, if we can get the $147,000, here's would be the breakdown. that we got the $147,000 grant. NAM would receive $44,500. Your Life Matters would, in the fire department, will receive $41,500. OD Free and the Office of Emergency Management will receive $30,000. And the Police Department Substance Use Disorder Program will receive $31,000. You can skip that slide. Go to the next one.
I didn't get the first. Director Simmons, what was the very first one you gave us?
Naptown Antidote, $44,500.
33,000?
44,500. And that's with the 147,000. If we get that, we have to go with that. That'll be the breakdown. The earlier breakdown that was read was from the 190,000 from the state, if we get that. Okay, shifting gears. Food Friday, that was an enhancement for $27,000. It began in 2018 in the lobby area of OEM. We dealt with 30 families there. We got our food from the Anne Arundel County Food Bank. During the pandemic, two things happened, healthcare disparity and food insecurity. They were the two prominent things that came out of the pandemic that we discovered. Food Friday now delivers 212 boxes and serves an average of 615 individuals every week, primarily by volunteers. And if you haven't done that, I know a lot of you have been down there. That's a heck of an operation to see. They do a great job. During the pandemic, the program was funded through the CARES Act and some donations. With the end of the CARES Act, OEM is requesting $27,000 to keep the program running. Food relief is delivered to every ward in Annapolis and nowhere but Annapolis. Next slide, please. The requested budget allows the program to expand to accommodate 40 additional families if we need to in FY24. How this is meted out is $1,250 per month for supplies, boxes, bags, stickers, markers. $1,000 per month for Blessed in Tech, the nonprofit, to rent and fuel a truck to transport the food from Anne Arundel County Food Bank to Pip Moyer. And that's a total of 245 families, so we can grow from 212 to 245 if we have to in the next fiscal year.
Thank you for the pictures.
I'm sorry?
Speaking for Alderwoman Finlayson, thank you.
Thanks for the
We like
pictures.
pictures.
You're welcome. So total per month, 245 families is 2,250 with a full year budget of 2,250 times 12 is 27,000. Comments? Another enhancement that was approved was the Winter Relief Program serves as a shelter of last resort. Nobody dies on the street from exposure. In Annapolis, we open it up when wind chill reaches 32 degrees or lower. It's open at my discretion from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. Each person who arrives goes through an intake process. They're given a hot meal, and in the morning when they leave, they get a bag lunch. It's managed by the nonprofit Blessed in Tech Ministries with administrative oversight from OEM. They've improved the training and caliber of training for the folks who actually are the attendants there. They trained in Narcan, hands-only CPR, COVID, testing capabilities, human services referrals. Next slide, please.
Just if you can go back one, we have 14,000 as the total enhancement amount, not 4,600.
Okay, yeah.
14,600.
Remember we talked about that small grant that we got for this program? So we have 14,600. We're applying that $10,000 grant, and that saves $10,000 for the citizens of Annapolis. So we're only asking for 4,600.
Was that a county or state
So it's a FEMA grant.
or federal? Okay, okay. So
It's a FEMA grant administered through the Department of Social Services.
And it's in the grants committee?
No, we just got it in March, like about 2-3 weeks ago, yeah. It's brand.
Okay. A little time check here. We've got about 14 minutes left. Or
659.
total or with questions?
So not much else to say about that. We activate 91 times, total of 1,028 folks come through there. And we're asking for an enhancement of 4,600. But I understand that may change because the biggest thing why we're asking for an enhancement is that we want to pay them minimum wage. The attendants overnight right now, they receive a stipend of $75. We want to pay them minimum wage, and that's why we ask for this enhancement.
So that's not in the budget right now.
This is in the budget.
It is in the budget right now.
This one is in the budget.
Okay. Okay, sorry, you might have said that.
And last but not least, for the sake of time, next slide. And that's the phone system for the EOC. And this is not in the budget. $4,454.35 to pay that bill.
So we've had that in the past being paid by the Emergency Management Performance Grant.
And we don't have that grant this year?
We do.
Oh,
We
okay.
do.
All right.
So those phone lines are paid for by the performance grant.
We're asking for the city to pay for that and not depend on that grant.
But numbers-wise, it's in the budget under grants. Okay. All right. Okay, we'll stop there for questions. Colleagues?
I have a quick question.
Alderman O'Neill?
Thank you. Thank you very much. That was very detailed. I appreciate that. I did have a question about the change in maintenance. You went down in your maintenance cost. Is that because we have newer vehicles or less vehicles or?
We have the same amount of vehicles and we don't set them. That's set from somewhere else.
That's scheduled through Public Works Vehicle Maintenance Program and Replacement Program. And it's predicated on the needs for the maintenance and replacement of the vehicles. Nothing's changed materially. It's just that they determined this year they didn't need as much.
Thank you. And then I would like to just make a quick note that this week we are actually delivering 225 boxes to residents, so we're quickly building up to that 245. So I'd like our council to consider that.
And I apologize that we weren't able to help you last week.
You're fine.
So,
Thank you very much.
Alderman Finlayson?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I guess I'll start from the end. And maybe this is for Ms. Dickinson. I'm just amazed that our phone bills aren't paid automatically. And it's got to be a request to fund our phones.
The 4,500?
Or any amount for any.
That's a special set of phone lines. Our normal phone lines are in everybody's operating budget, but we have not put this in the operating budget in the past. It's been paid for by a grant, so that's where we left it. We have a grant to pay for something. I'd much rather program it there than use the general fund monies for it.
And I agree. I guess my question is, if the grant goes away, then I would think it's in the budget, whether it's paid for by a grant or through the operating budget. I'm just surprised at that, that's all. So, and this is a question for Mr. Malinoff. When the new comp and class study people come in, do they get this kind of information? Because you know where I'm going with this. You know, I'm just bewildered about the grades in this department, as small as it is. Maybe that's why it attracts attention, for what they do, and they are like the lowest grades in the city. I don't think the comp and class study folks of the past have taken into consideration the work. So I would hope that with the new company coming in, that they have greater access to the real data, the real information, such as the presentations, and not just from OEM, but all the departments. Because it is phenomenal, the types of work that's being done, and the grades that they're given just don't jive. Maybe on the upper levels, the management level, and maybe not even, because I can't even include the deputy in this, and I wasn't going to go there. But we need to make sure that they have all the data when they're determining the class of our employees. So that's my request. Mr. Director Simmons, do you have any enhancements that were not included, and not talking about the substance use ones? Are there any other
You talking about the ones that
enhancements
didn't make the budget?
that did not make the mayor's budget?
Yeah, I do. I do.
Well, can you tell us?
Sure can. I actually bought copies if you need them.
Okay.
Please.
So I had an enhancement. Of course, everybody knows that the upgrade to the deputy director's position.
We're going to have a time problem. How much time will this take? Can we have the list?
I can do it in 2 minutes.
Can we have a copy of that, please?
Sure. The upgrade to the OEM deputy director position for $43,590.30. Second one is for an additional planner in our office with benefits, salary and benefits, $78,015.60. Third was substance use disorder. We talked about that one, $147,000. The Food Friday program, we talked about that one. The winter relief program, we talked about that.
I thought they were in the budget.
What's that? They are in the budget. I'm just
Okay,
going after
I
all
just
of
want
them.
what's not in the budget.
Okay,
please.
the last one was the temporary housing for $5,000, and that went to, I think, another agency.
I'm sorry, say that again, and then Mr. Melanoff wants to. So the planner, the deputy, the planner, those are the only two that you've given us so far that are not in the mayor's budget.
And the third would be the enhancement for temporary emergency housing for $5,000. And I think that Alderman Gay just came in, and that was one that he pushed forward, and they wanted $5,000 in the Office of Emergency Management and $5,000 in the Office of Community Services. So if something would have happened during normal business hours, somebody found themselves homeless, put out, they would deal with it, and after hours and weekends, the Office of Emergency Management would deal with that. But I think that
I have to
Is
call
it
in.
5 or 10?
5 for me,
Yeah.
And then
and I think 5 for Office of
So a
Community
total of 10.
Services.
Okay.
I have to call in the city
Yeah.
manager. Go ahead.
We put it holistically, I hate to see the city operate as silos. This program is from Community Services. We initially thought, well, why don't we put 5 in one and 5 in the other because of off hours? And then in putting the budget together, we said, well, because emergency management can handle can dedicate the use in off hours, we'll put it all in Community Services, only for management purposes. It will operate the same. They will have the same access for it. It is for the city and for this program, and Community Services is where we put it. Not at any slight, not budgeting it for it, but that's how we designed it.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Well, Mr. Melanoff, and I appreciate that. I just think we should know. So if we don't ask the question, there's no opportunity to explain that the money is in the budget in the Office of Community Services. Yeah,
Could we,
so-
could we have Director Dickinson, I understand that this was submitted to, this isn't the first time the city manager or the director have seen these, correct?
We submitted it.
Okay, so they.
No, we saw them. These were submitted to us in the budget process.
Okay, and
So we
then-
met on it.
Okay, so you decided which ones were in and which ones were out. So I'd rather hear from you, Director Dickinson, on which ones are in and which ones are out, so we know where they are in the budget. So we then can discuss those during the amendment process.
Okay, well, I think we went over them. The first 2 pages were not, and the rest of them have, the 147, as you know, is not in there at 147. It's in at 215 for now.
Yeah, we got that,
And,
yeah.
and nothing in the general fund for it. But other than that, everything is in the budget, including the temporary emergency housing monies that's in OCS.
Okay.
May I follow up? So the emergency planner, 78,000 is or is not?
No,
Is
no.
not?
The
Okay.
first 2 pages are not, and the 147, which is the third page, is not in at that
Okay.
amount.
And the rest are. Okay, okay. All right.
Okay, well,
Mr.
follow up, I'm sorry. The winter relief 14.5 is included in the budget. Phone line is included in the budget. And the temporary housing is
Are you
included
clear?
in the budget. Just
Are you
want to be clear. Okay.
No, and I also want to reiterate that in the comp classification study, even after the last meeting, I did go back and speak to the director, and I said, this part of the study has got to be done first, prior to the budget being struck. And she also explained to me the process of the group of deputy directors and reclassifications, whatever class it'll be, won't just be individual, but I think they're looking at, her terminology, focus groups of the groups together with the people who are doing the review. And we haven't struck the final contract yet, but they are also familiar with the organization because they're doing the county in this region.
Mr. Melanoff, that sounds like we're going to delay it even longer.
No.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. 2 years, let me keep repeating this, 2 years in the making. I don't understand, you know.
And remember, we have a pool of funds in the FY24 budget of $250,000 set aside for any upgrades or reclasses that come about from the results of the study. So even if that wasn't in time for the budget process, we have the funds set aside and can transfer the funds with maybe even with a city manager transfer, because upgrades aren't, in and of themselves, aren't extremely costly.
So similar to what you did last year for the
union,
union negotiations.
yes,
So you have whole dollars, and are those whole
Yes.
dollars are recurring, they're set up as a recurring expense?
They're set aside in an expense account, like a budget account, but in the Office of Finance non-allocated section.
Okay.
As a holding place.
Okay, and so, and as a city manager saying, we will know before
should
we
know fairly
finalize the
soon.
budget, most likely during amendment time when we solidify these amendments.
And I was even following that, even if it's not in time for solidifying the budget,
Okay,
it will be immediately available once the study findings come, whether that's June, July, whatever. It'll be
But
available.
we can take an action also
when we know,
to address it.
when we know, I'm not sure what, I know what you mean, taking action.
Well, we can talk about it offline.
Okay, we're going to conclude OEM. If anyone has any questions, colleagues, I apologize, but can you direct, the Transportation Department is here to present, so we're going to conclude OEM. If you have any questions, just submit them in writing to me, and I'll get them to the director, and we hope that you can answer in a day or so.
Madam Chair, committee, thank you for your time today. I gotta say, I'm a little disappointed that you're not throwing footballs this year.
I know, I'll get you one.
But you got munchies. I mean, really?
Teddies, you got Teddy Grahams. I know, we got to lighten it up a little bit. I think we
Thank
might need
you.
to forfeit our break.
I need like 5 minutes.
You need 5 minutes? Okay, we're going to recess for 5 minutes. Can we have a recess for 5 minutes?
No.
Director of Transportation Parking, Marcus Moore.
Kwaku Achimandua.
Berenice Schneider.
So we'd like to present to you, second slide, our proposed FY24 budget as outlined here that you can see. The components we'll talk about are focused on our team members, our FY23 accomplishments, our performance measures for transportation and parking, and our FY24 budget requests as they relate to the transportation fund and the parking fund. And then, of course, we'll entertain any questions that you might have. So the department overview or agency overview discusses those elements that we have, which is the public transit bus service, parking management, and the transportation planning. Next one. An agency overview of our members here, we have administration, vehicle operations, maintenance, and parking that's subcontracted out to two contractors, SP and Premium Parking. Our FY23 accomplishments for transportation, as you'll see there at the top, the total grant award was just over $4 million, broken down into aspects of operating and capital. That adds up to the $4.9,384,000. We were awarded the Federal Transit Administration grant for the electric ferry, which was about $2.975 million, and that's a joint effort with the Department of Planning and Zoning. 2 electric buses have been ordered, and they're on ordered electric buses that should come in the next 18 months. The funds have been secured, and we're really excited about going forward with the electric mobility plan. Late last year, in December, we acquired 2 E6 GEM electric carts for the 10-minute trolley service that is operating Friday, Saturday, Sunday in the best weather, I should say, 3 seasons. Basically from like April and as far as we can go to November maybe. And if we can do those 3 Thursdays that we have Midnight Madness, that would be great. But that's connecting the garages with downtown, and they will be always in operation as a part of the mayor's plan. The safe transit vehicle operations, we had no FTA reportable incidents or accidents. Sometimes you wonder, it's like, well, I saw that the transit bus was an accident, but it didn't meet the threshold of FTA reportability. Our FY22 transit service plan, we had just over 205,000 unlinked passengers, which was 44,000 service hours. We completed and submitted all of our required FTA, MTA reports on time. We've updated our transit safety plan, which the council has signed off on back in November as a requirement for the bipartisan infrastructure law that you see there. The downtown circulator, which has been realigned and renamed or remarketed as the free shuttle or the magenta shuttle, has really worked out well. And during peak times, Monday through Friday in the AM and PM, we're running 2 shuttles where the wait time is just under 10 minutes. And all other times, it's 1 shuttle running, and it's about 20 minutes. Depending on traffic, it could be as little as 18, or what you see going on in Church Circle and Duke of Gloucester now, it could be just a little bit more. With the opening of the new Wilbourn Estates, we realigned bus stops there to better serve the community once that opened up last summer. Next slide, please. FY23 accomplishments as they relate to parking. Daily parking enforcement for residents, 100% of the time. Parking meters were up and operative more than 99% of the time. And management responded to, as we say, valid customer complaints on time and within 2 or 3 days at the very most. The collection rate or fines that were issued, we were a collection rate of just over 76% of the time. Next slide, 7. So our performance measures consist of goals, objectives, and benchmarks for transportation and parking, you'll see. Performance measures for transportation, we're very much rooted into regulatory requirements as we talked earlier as it relates to the MDOT, MTA. They're a watchdog for the FTAs. We get these grant funds. And each quarter we do have a meeting with them. Excuse me, and our last one was just about 3 weeks ago, where we've been in compliance for the last 5.5 years, where it's kind of a cursory for them to come out and see. And they've actually, in the years gone by, used us as a benchmark for other lots in the state of Maryland. And lots are locally operated transit systems, and there's 23 in the state of Maryland, going from far west of Hagerstown all the way down to Ocean City. And the MTA Baltimore is one of them, as well as Montgomery County, which are the larger ones in the system of lots. So you'll see, we'll talk about the goals, and each goal has its own objective and benchmarks, as we'll discuss throughout our presentation. Next one. Goal 1 for transit bus service, to improve the reliability and convenience for customer service. We want to improve the reliability, which means the on-time performance. We do that by measuring by time checkpoints every single day, and we use that data to report back where we are. And our goal is always above 90%. Sometimes we've hit 88, 89, because of some big issues that may be going on around the city that brings the average down. But we have had months for fixed route where it's been as high as 96, 97%. Customer satisfaction, we're also keeping track of that using Google Docs, and we'll record what the issue was, and it'll stay open until a appropriate supervisor, dispatcher, manager, myself will satisfy what the question was, and then we put that as a part of our activity report that's submitted to the city manager each month. The microtransit pilot program service will help us get to the underserved neighborhoods or places that you don't need fixed route going there once an hour, every 2 hours or so. So that will really help us connect the city and parts of the county. And as you probably are aware, as you go west down West Street, just past Route 2, you've entered into the county. So most of our services, with the exception of the Orange route, does go from Eastport to the mall, which is actually in the county. So having the microtransit service and be able to connect with our counterparts of Anne Arundel County, this will really be helping to serve those neighborhoods that there's not a need to go there continuously. And there's so many other pockets like that that will be able to serve much better with a microtransit operation. The microtransit RFP did hit the street yesterday, and it will be just for a service, meaning the software, I should say, where we'll use our own drivers and our own vehicles and all. So you'll see the benchmarks here for transportation, 85% of on-time performance. We've been hitting that mark pretty regularly, as I mentioned, as high as 96%. 100% of our scheduled annual hours. We talked about the amount of complaints that we get for 100,000 boarding trips, less than 10 or 1%. And improve the ridership experience by connecting the underserved neighborhoods, as we talked about, with a microtransit project that we're going to be doing a pilot soon. Next one. Goal 2 is to improve the operational safety and security. The objectives are to reduce the FTA reportable accidents. So FTA does have a decision tree, if you will, that will say if it's reportable or not. And we do follow those guidelines, and we report, and then we have to report back to MTA for the FTA if that has reached that threshold. We try to, as best we can, maintain a safe and reliable transit system. We're wheelchair accessible and improve the transit security overall. And we do that by our surveillance cameras that we have on board, by our pre-trip inspections, by following the rules of our PM program, of A, B, and C program of checking components on each bus in special intervals. That has all added to the safety and security of our traveling public and our operators that operate these buses every day. Goal 3 is compliance with all applicable FTA and or MDOT MTA requirements. And as I made mention earlier, we had a meeting with the MTA, MDOT to go over for the FTA, and there's many things that they'll check to make sure that we're in compliance with like Title VI, make sure we're reporting to the National Transit Database end of each year, which is in October 31st, I believe that is due. Complying with the drug and alcohol program, which means we would be all safety-sensitive employees, which are those that fix the buses, which are maintenance technicians, those that are dispatching the buses, which are all of our supervisors, and obviously those that are driving the buses. We will get a random selection each month from our third-party white glove to say who needs to be tested, drug or alcohol, or sometimes drug and alcohol. And because it's a random test, it's no longer called what was a quarterly testing, where people knew if they were being tested today, hey, my next earliest time can come up will be 3 months from now. We've had employees that have been tested back-to-back months, and it's random. So they never know, we never know, we do not choose. So keeps us compliant, and as you can see, our benchmark is 100%, which we've hit each step along the way. Our goal 4 is to improve the transit business practices, and our objectives are to increase passenger fare revenue through the elimination of fare evasion, and strengthen the financial health of the transit system, including maximizing all sourcing funds. So having the electronic fare boxes clearly help that, where we're not taking those Chuck E. Cheese or wooden nickels or anything of dollar ripped in half and given to the person behind them. This really helped us with reporting, and we can find out other information by using this system. The financial health of the transit system by looking at what grants that we apply, that we can qualify for, and that we're applying for too. And that's where our Deputy Director Dua has been very much that ninja grant person, as many people have used that term, in finding the sources to keep us going. A good benchmark for fare box recovery is about 20%. I think we're just a little bit lower than that, but that's what the national average that the NTD FTA will say for a public transit system, 20% of your fare box recovery. And the average operating cost, which excludes administrative and overhead charges, is about $90 an hour for the transit. Next one, please. Long-term goals will be to develop the blueprint for a hybrid system that consists of fixed route and on-demand microtransit services. So we talked about the microtransit. We want to look at how we can intermingle these and probably have a feeder service that will help connect more of the city than we've done yesterday and what we are doing today. So looking forward to developing this blueprint of a hybrid system will be very advantageous for us as a community. And then other parts of it will be the transition to the zero emissions transit fleet and improve the bus stop amenities and accessibilities. And we'll look towards FY 25 and 26 for monies to actually achieve those goals. So more to follow, more to come with those initiatives. Performance measures, parking. The goal is to increase or to ensure the on-street parking regulations are enforced equitably and consistently across the board. Support economic viability by balancing competing demands for limited parking spaces, and the upgrading of their system, what was known as PARC, so the Parking Access Revenue Control System, which will be installed later on in the garages that the city owns, and I'm sure Hillman will have that going once it opens up right away. Next one. The goal 1 for parking, to ensure the on-street parking regulations. The objective is to effectively enforce the on-street parking regulations, as we made mention of, and to do that is by constantly moving around. And instead of just using them as considered parking enforcement officers, they're kind of ambassadors of the city to help out people with parking needs and issues that may come up. And the benchmark would be to get 85% of the residential parking districts to be covered by daily enforcement each day, and have the meters work 95% of the time. And as I mentioned earlier, we're closer to the 99% of doing that operational meters. And most of those single head, double head meters have been replaced with the multi-space meters just last year. Goal 2, to support the economic viability of balancing competing demands for limited parking. To do this, we need to ensure timely resolution of customer complaints, and improve the collection and clearance rates of issued parking violations. And the biggest thing is the way they get in touch with us through calls or through emails, whether it's Premium Plus or SP, and how we handle them. And we made mention before, within 2 days, a valid complaint, But everything that comes in for us is valid, meaning that they deserve a response. So we look at it that way. Nothing is invalid or invalidated because we think it's like, where did this question come from? We're responding to them. And we, as a support mechanism for the parking contractors, with our parking coordinator and our staff here administratively, we've been able to do that. It's been a hard road with having the Gilman Garage down for rebuild, but we made it through it. We're doing better, and it'll only get better along the way. 17. Goal number 3, the objective of the parks. Remember, we discussed what parks was the acronym for the new parking system that will allow a lot easier access for control of these garages. So replace that at the GOTS in Knighton Garage and, of course, eventually the Park Place. And the benchmark for this goal would be to replace all of those within 12 months after funding becomes available. So if the funding's not there until late August or September, looking at that rolling 12 months. And hopefully, we complete that project within or under the approved budget scope. Long-term goal for parking, increase the access to parking payment options. The multi-app, there are a lot of new ways of paying, and most people are familiar with Park Mobile, but there's so many others there that will have this multi-app that even if you don't use Park Mobile in another city and you're visiting here, it'll convert over to allow your wireless connection, your handheld device to do that. So we're looking at those kind of things that we can do for the city, so it's not just we're in the city of Annapolis and you must use what our parking contractor does, which is Park Mobile. So that's one. But continuously evaluate the areas outside of the concession area for paid parking programs. Now the good part, the budget requests that we have submitted for the transportation fund and the parking fund that will help us in FY24. Our enhancement projects are 2. The part-time supervisor position, right now, and I've been with the city of Annapolis going on 8 years, we've only had 3 supervisors. Monday through Friday, we're supervisors there from 4:30 in the morning to 11 o'clock at night. Drivers come in at 5 o'clock in the morning, and the last one gets off around 10:45. All of the supervisors have over 12 or 13, 14 years, so they all have about a month of vacation, plus, of course, personal holidays and all. There's that built-in overtime. And they very rarely call out sick, but they do take their vacation. We really could use 4 full-time supervisors, but a part-time one will definitely help. There's only once a week where they all are there together, all 3 of the overlap, a Tuesday, Wednesday. But all the other days, the superintendent will need to go down to cover when somebody gets off at 12:30, because they came in at 4:30. The other one will come in at 3 to 11 to bridge that gap. So this will help out tremendously to continue to administrate the office, because there's always something going on where it is needed, a call coming in about a schedule to make a reservation for mobility or the case may be. Part-time bus operators, last year this time, they were making $14.40 an hour. They weren't a part of the COLA program since probably FY18, and this is a skilled craft. Some people were making more to be a garage attendant than the driver that has to maintain certain credentials and also a safety-sensitive mindset. So it's been put in the budget to up the minimum rate for part-time bus operators. And it was a struggle the last 2 years to fill this highly sensitive, safety-sensitive position. And having this COLA part of the bus operator pool will definitely help out. So I really appreciate those considerations for that. The total transit grants is about 2.8% of the total, excuse me, what did I say, 28? 29.8, just less than 30% of the transportation fund revenue. You want to talk a little bit about how that came in?
Yes, if you look at the budget, it's about $7.9 million. On the revenue side, there is a total grant of about $2.353 million. So if you take a simple ratio, that's how we did arrive at that number. And we want to emphasize, put the emphasis on the fact that transit grants are very, very important to support the bus operations. In the past 2 years, there was some fusion of transit grants. Care funds was one, which we got about $4 million, which really helped a lot. And currently we have the upper grants, which is American Recovery Planning Act of 2021. We did receive about 1.9 in operating and 840,000 in capital. So we wanted just to point out that transit grants actually go a long way to help with the bus service.
Thank you. So as we get further into the summary, this will make a little bit more sense when we talk about the increase or deductions as far as the money we'll be getting for revenue. But as Dr. Duwa just explained the summary of the budget request for the Transportation Fund, you can see it's just about 2% more than FY23. We'll be able to entertain questions after if you have some about that page. Next one, please. So when you look at the decrease in the transit grants, as Dr. Duwa mentioned, the ARPA funds, CARES, and CRISA are no longer, those are the federal grants that we were getting around COVID and before. So we'll still be getting the transit grants, but the decrease in transit grants will be 56% less because of the expiration of those three categories I just made mention of.
Let me expand on it quickly. If you have the budget on the revenue side, you notice that the FY 2023 projected grant is about 5.3 because of the upper and other grants that came in one time. If you look at the FY 2024 proposed, it's about 2.353. That is where the percentage came from in terms of the reduction. So we are not getting upper funds, we are not getting care funds. We have been informed that we will get some of the infrastructure bill fund, but at this time there is no notice of award. So we do not know how much we will get, and therefore we don't use it in our budget.
I do need to interrupt on that one because this is a really important discussion point. What you're saying, that's a strong statement that you have a reduction in revenue due to concessionary and Hillman Garage, but that doesn't account for the projected waterfall payment, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, could you comment on that, Director Dickinson? Because
When you're looking at the transportation fund, you won't see the waterfall. The waterfall is going into the parking fund.
Well,
Then the parking fund will use those funds to transfer
To
to
the-
transportation.
correct.
There is a transfer budgeted for '24 of, I think it's $2 million budgeted to go in from the parking to transportation. It's more than 2 million. I think it might be 2.4.
yeah. A little discussion here. Yeah, this is a
Yes, I'm sorry.
misleading statement.
1.4 million from the parking fund next year, and we're going to use some of our ARPA funding to help close the gap
Okay.
for next year.
Yeah,
And then, by then, we'll know for the following year what those waterfall payments really look like.
Right.
And we'll be able to set a more stable amount
Yeah.
from the parking fund going forward.
Okay. We'll go back to that. I just, there's more to this than what it says. You know what I'm trying to say? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, on the expense side, the increase in salary and benefits of about 18% is due largely that we have all of our administrative positions filled as of now, where the last 2 years that was not the case. As I mentioned, we're still working on some of the operational side, but all administrative positions are filled. And the decrease in the capital outlay, which is the additional cost for the city overhead, city.
Typically, your capital outlay will be your capital grants. It depends upon what capital items you are asking money for. If you look at the FY 2023, we have a regular large capital for replacement of 2 buses. We also got additional upper capital of about $840,000 for 1 battery electric and a support vehicle. In fact, one of the 2 battery electric buses that we have ordered actually is fully paid for with the APA grants. We also did get the grant for automatic vehicle location. If you're familiar with the Magenta, it has one of them. We want to put them on all our buses. So if you look at the FY 2023 capital grant that we get, it was small. Given our grant application for FY 2024, we don't expect to get upper capital. We expect to get a regular large urban. We are also asking for technical assistance for updating our transit development plan. If you do remember what Director Moore said about the hybrid transit system, when we do the TDP, one of the focus areas is to look into what kind of blueprint that we can have to actually have a hybrid of micro transit and a fixed route. So the capital grant aspect depends upon what has been requested and what we had in the previous years. So that's why it shows a decrease of 37% reduction. To add on to that, for FY 2024 in our grant application, we are requesting for money for 2 small electric buses, which is just close to $900,000.
All right, the summary here we have for the request for the parking funds. See the revenues are just about 11% less as what Parkwood has made mention of, with the concession area and the Hillman Garage being offline. The expense part of it is due to the increase in salary and benefits overall, based on our administrative positions being filled as of this point. We're ready for any questions that you may have of us. You want to want one more point?
Yeah, okay. Okay. Alderwoman Finlayson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A few questions. And it looks like my habit is to go from the most recent to the, anyway. Going to page 22, is the decrease in revenue, and that's just like 3 slides back, is that based on the fact that Hillman Garage is down and we didn't have the benefit of those revenues?
Here we are looking at only the transit grants, not the entire revenue for the transportation fund.
Did the fact that Hillman was down impact the grants that we received?
No.
Okay.
I did explain that the reduction is due to the fact that...
That's not what I'm looking at.
Oh,
I'm looking
okay.
at page 23, I'm sorry, 23, the next one. The 11% decrease in revenues.
Yeah.
That's because of the garage. Okay, and the 8% increase of expenses has to do with staffing?
Here, remember, we do contract out the parking management to SP Plus that they do submit their budget to the city. In their budget, they do have expectation of COLA for the employees and stuff like that. So when you take a look at the entire budget, we see 8% increase on the expenditure side.
Okay, so that's based on the contract that we have with the 2 parking companies?
Yes, please.
Okay. Going back to, well, on page 22, and I did have a question about the 56% decrease in transit grants. So same question, is that because, well, you tell me why we had such a decrease in grants, please.
Okay. Transit grants for FY 2023, we had a regular large urban, regular ADA PM grant. We got additional infusion from the American Recovery Plan Act, about $1.96 million. So when you add them all up for FY 2023, it's a large number. Looking at FY 2024, there is one grant that you will not get for sure, the upper grants, which is about $2 million for FY 2023. So that is why we have a large decrease in the transit grant.
I think, and maybe this is in the book, but we should see those grants for your department. Do we have them on page?
107 and 108, they're line items. But I don't know if it's a breakdown that you
171?
requested. Yeah, 107 and 108.
Yeah. And on the revenue summary sheet, we do have the projected FY 2023, which is about 5.3, whereas for FY 2024, which is about 2.3.
I'm in share budget. Yeah.
Okay, so we do have that in our book somewhere.
Yeah.
And I apologize because I haven't had time to put my book in order,
So you can
but
see
that's
that.
going to
You can
come.
see that.
Okay, so we do have that, so I can refer back to it to see where the 56% decrease it comes from.
Yeah, we did calculate that. I can
So,
assure
okay,
you.
if we have that, I believe that you said we do. The increase in salaries of 18% is attributable to filling the vacant positions that we didn't have
Yeah.
in the past.
Yeah.
And the 37% decrease,
In
where does
in
that
capital, capital grants are for purchase of equipment, buses, and other devices. If we look back at FY 2023, we have large urban grant for 2 diesel buses. We got another grant for 1 battery electric bus and 1 support vehicle. We did get grant for automatic vehicle location system. So if you look at the total for FY 2023, that was, let me check the number here for you.
Well, let me try to make sense of this in my head.
Yeah.
Is that decrease based upon the fact that during COVID, we got a boatload of money?
Yes.
And now that boatload of money is gone away.
Yeah.
So we're simply comparing when we were flush with money to now those dollars have gone away, and the decrease, the appearance of a decrease is 37%. So 37% over last year.
Yes.
Or the previous year.
Yeah.
Okay, I got it. Thank you. The COLA that you're requesting, are these your enhancements? Are they in the mayor's budget or not in the mayor's budget?
They are in the mayor's budget.
So everything on page 20, the addition of a part-time supervisor and a 5% COLA is included in the mayor's budget?
Yes, please. Actually, we just got an email from Katie yesterday that we were looking at $17 and some few cents for the part-time driver pool. I think our finance has increased it to 25.
Could I ask Ms. Conley to respond?
Yes,
Please.
ma'am. We've increased the starting salary for part-time bus operators to be $25 an hour, which makes us way more competitive
Way more competitive than whom?
with, if you want to talk about your competitors, Marcus. And then we've also included the funding for a part-time transit supervisor as well.
So those are in the 23 budget or in the 24?
24 budget.
In the 24 budget.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Would you guys stop? I'm just kidding. Okay, so what I'm looking at on page 20, the part-time supervisor is included, and you've increased the cost or the hourly wage for the bus operators, the part-time bus operators.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, and that is in the budget, but we were asking about in competition with the, like jobs within the same area. The part-time drivers are a pool. So the pool, at that rate, maybe it's only 7 or 8 that we can afford to do, because remember, the part-time is less than 30 hours. Most of them are retired, they only work a certain amount of hours, or they have a part-time job. And we've only had 1 or 2 ever that able to work almost 35 hours or more. Most of them are a day or 2 or 3 a week. So it's between 8, 16, and 24 hours per week per person. Reston Limo, who runs the other, was paying their drivers starting out at $22 an hour. In the counties around us, it's a little bit more. We can do a study, but the average is probably 25 for a transit bus driver, operator, and quite a bit more when you get to a DC or a Baltimore, of course. But around us, we were way underpaid for a highly skilled, technical, safety-sensitive position.
Okay, thank you for that. We went through a period when we moved part-time drivers to full-time drivers because we were actually paying more in overtime than we were, and so we gave jobs, full-time jobs. I'm not seeing your overtime budget, so I don't know, or I'm sure we have it, I just don't have it in front of me. I'm not sure, do you need to move part-time drivers to full-time? Because what I thought I heard you say was that they're working really long hours.
Their hours are pretty good. Overtime is depending on their availability. Not every part-timer wants to be a full-timer. This is the first time, and since I've been here in the last year, that we've hired full-time off the street. Whereas before they came as part-time and promoted, they were chopping at the bits to want that. Oh, there may be one person in our part-time pool that we have 10 people right now that would like to be full-time. All the others have no desire. And some of them, 2 people that you might have seen around, were full-time, retired, and came back as part-time. So that's what happens there sometimes. In fact, some of them were making much more in their full-time job. They couldn't afford to leave and to even start out as a bus driver 1 at a step 1, 2, or 3. So what we would do is write a justification if we brought them above a 1 to say to be commensurate with other like jobs in the county. So bring him bus driver 1, which is a grade 5, in as a step 2 or 3. And this is the reason why we're doing it. So we do still have vacancies as a bus driver 2, a bus driver 1 that we're trying to fill. So, but we're much better off than we were last year or 2 years ago. We probably have 4 vacancies.
Is the circulator part of, do you use the same drivers for
Yes.
the circulators as you do the regular routes?
Yes, that's a bid. We have fixed routes in that right now. The main one is run by Reston, our subcontractor, through SP. And the other second one is a ADOT driver. It's our thought that, they'll be converted over at some point when we get our electric buses and all, but that is a part of a bid line for our bus operators. And they bid twice a year based on their seniority of days off and time of day they want to work.
I'm going to assume that the ones that I see speeding are the ones that SP Plus has. I'm just guessing.
She didn't mean that.
Yes, I did. Yes, I did, because they do speed, some of them.
Yeah,
There's
just
a
to
couple of
add
them that
to
I've
that.
seen in my community. I can't speak for others. Okay.
Just to add to
But
that.
that's a fact. So, anyway, fines that SP Plus and the other company charges. Do we have, I've had several complaints from people who have gotten $300 parking tickets going to church on Sunday morning, parking on Duke of Gloucester. First of all, do they know our community, and do they understand what Sunday mornings mean when they're in close proximity to a church? Is this their habit to give people $300 tickets, which is really...
Well, the fees and fines are set by council and during the budget process. So if it's in front of a fire hydrant or a red curb or blocking someone's driveway, it could be as little as $50 if it's expired meter, but safety sensitive goes up to $300.
He must have marked it up.
Well, I've had at least 3 people, 2 at St. Mary's and 1 at Asbury. And they went ahead and paid the ticket. They didn't come to me complaining, but they did mention it to me after the fact, and they knew I would follow up. So I'll check that.
Okay.
But they did pay the ticket, so they weren't trying to avoid that.
Okay.
What is fare evasion? Do we have a lot of people? I assume that's when people get on the bus and don't pay?
Not nearly as much as we used to. We have a lot of systems in place with the electronic fare box that won't allow you to do what's called a pass back. I pass my card out the window so someone else can use it. It'll know that, most other big cities, the same thing. I can use it on this bus and it's like, oh, I got on the wrong bus. I'm from the green, I'll get on the red. It'll allow that. But if I go sit down, hand out the window, somebody else is coming on the same bus I'm on, it won't allow. But old fare can, you have to kind of fold up your bill to put it in. So if I rip it in half and fold it up, Quakuka goes for 50 cents, I go for 50 cents. And we can't tell the difference of a Canadian coin, a Chuck E. Cheese coin, or something for a car wash. So that's been, almost eliminated completely. But we don't get many of those. And we remind our drivers, our operators, to be safety sensitive. You're a fare advisor, not a fare enforcer. Because we can replace that bus and we can't replace you. So, but it's still something we want to look at because that'll look at the total percentage of what we would look at a fare box recovery. But it's not as big as it used to be. Do you want to add anything to that, sir?
Yeah, the electronic fare box actually has helped to validate all currencies that we program it for. The only foreign currency it accepts is, I think, Canadian 5 cents because of the metal composition, the same as American 5 cents. And most importantly, especially when they have their day passes or yearly passes, you can get on the bus, the other guy can go to the back of it and then get it and bring it back and sell. So when we were writing the program we were at, I think, the plant to look at the program. So we made a policy decision that if you come in, scan your card, then nobody can use the card in the next 10 minutes or so. By that time, the bus is gone. So we have put in place checks and balances to minimize fare evasion, but that doesn't mean that it should not be on your radar. So that's why we continue to look at it and enforce it.
Thank you. And I know we're out of time. Service. That's the 10-minute warning. The 10-minute warning. No, it's not. Service to Annapolis High School. Is that anywhere on the radar?
It's a really good question. As you know, before we ran the yellow and the gold, and the yellow route went to the Heritage Turnaround, and so that's still operated by the county. It still does go. What they did, they being the county, ran another shooter bus during those peak times that it would go direct to Heritage Turnaround because the yellow, the way it would transverse would be Harry Truman Parkway, and then it'll take almost 15 minutes to get there from the mall. Our thoughts are when we have a microtransit, that's something that can be done along the way as you look forward. But with the county being a little bit bigger than us, having their pockets a little bit deeper, it was easier for them to run more yellow during those peak times, which I think they did, according to my counterpart Sam Sneed, Director of Transportation in the county, was their way of fixing that or helping that, because that's what we did before. So they never changed the schedule or the hours of operation. That route does run Monday through Saturday, but we're looking at really Monday through Friday. So what was being pulled from the neighborhoods, which you're bringing up, the red and the brown, transferring at the mall in the times they would come in. So they put another one in there in the mix, so it was running like every 20 to 30 minutes versus on the top of the hour leaving the mall. So that's what's going on this past school year, and we can still look at what's going to happen for the next school year. But for what we want to do with the microtransit, it might work out that can be achieved better.
Could you, not rushing you, send me something with the explanation of what service is available at the high school? Because that comes up periodically in the Education Commission, and they keep saying, well, why can't the city do it? You know, and I need to be able to tell them exactly how the service is being provided by the county, as well as how we help to facilitate that.
Will do.
So, thank you. And one last thing about the Newtown bus stop. I want to say thank you. When I realized the bus stop was gone, when Wilborn Estates was finished, I called, and almost immediately that day or the next day, the bus came, did the run around to see if it would work in that circle there, and the bus stop came back, I mean, within days. And I'm talking 2 or 3 days. So I just want to say thank you. You guys are awesome.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Alderman O'Neill?
No questions at this time.
I have a question, and I lost my pages, but well, first thing I want to point out is, when you said the fare box recovery rate of ratio of 20%, that is not specific to the city of Annapolis. You say that is for the public that's listening to see if the county does things better. Industry standard. That is industry standard. It's a very clear point to make there.
Yes.
Okay. I had the pages, but I understand, that our parking fund, this is for Katie or Jody, our parking fund is a transfer to the transportation fund in the budget. And when I was looking at that last night, I saw that the parking fund number that's allocated, the two respective line items are different. One coming, yeah, is that, should I have to take that offline? There's a line item that has that transfer
You want to show her?
under both parking and transportation.
Show her or Katie.
And they don't match, and I would think that what's going out is coming in. For, I
23 or 24?
thought it was 24.
There could be fund transfers for other purposes, not, one fund might have a transfers coming from different funds, but hopefully Katie can show me.
Sorry
what-
about not having the page. My cat stickies weren't working. Sorry. Stickies were working. No, it's really,
Is this shown as transfer, the ARPA? Let's try to find the page you're looking at so I can walk you through it.
me too. Why can't I?
Define
Oh, I know. Maybe it's, sorry, I didn't mean to take
Also
time.
sending money to-
As usual, I'm taking time.
Okay, so if you look at if you're looking at page 109, I would suggest you look at page 109 at the top, this is the parking fund.
That's it. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you see interfund transfers, like I was saying,
Okay, so there's, it's called interfund transfer on page 109.
Mm-hmm.
And we're in the parking fund.
it's $1.7 million.
Yep, round up 1.7 million. So
Okay.
I'm assuming that that whole bucket of money then is transferred to the transportation fund, which is,
So that number includes a transfer to the transportation fund, but also includes a PAYGO transfer to a capital project
okay,
of $115,000, a parking project.
Okay.
So that number is total. If you break out the pieces of each side, you will see they agree, 1,430,000.
okay.
430,000 going from the parking fund to transportation.
And then that number is reflected on page, is that number reflected on page 107 under transportation, then in turn receiving one,
Hold on,
say
let me
1.3
find the revenue
million
side.
interfund transfer under transportation fund?
Yes, the 1,430,000 is that bottom number, and 107, the first table. Page 107, the first table that shows transportation fund revenues. That last line in revenues is 1,430,000.
Okay, so then what is the interfund transfer in transportation? Oh, you show expenses.
So 1,288,000, okay, hold on.
It's $1.1 million,
Million.
Well, that's a couple things. One, that's administrative charges, Katie? We've got a big spreadsheet here, hold on.
I'm confused. It's kind of weird because we're showing revenues and expenses.
That 1,288,000 is administrative charges that are going back to the general fund.
Okay, okay.
Right here.
That's kind of confusing.
Madam Chair, so we're saying 1.4 goes to transit, and then
Sorry.
1.28 goes to general fund?
Transportation, 1.4 million is coming in to transportation from parking. The
Okay,
parking fund is sending 1,288,000 to the general fund for administrative costs.
We're just showing that for information. It's throwing me off. You have a section on revenues and a section on expenses under the same department.
Yeah, well, each department can have different funds that it's managing.
that's why it's
Transportation has two different funds it manages, transportation and parking.
So it's,
So that, and those funds send money back and forth, and each of
So
those
you need-
funds
and they
may
need to
may
map.
provide
Okay, I
transfers to
got it.
other funds. So
Yeah.
it's not just exclusively going between the two.
right, and that's because it's an enterprise.
I mean, we can provide a breakdown of
No, this
each
is a
one to show
breakdown.
how they all balance out. I mean,
So that's a number that my colleague is very interested in, and how much of parking is only not, let me put words in your mouth, you asked how much is going of parking to transportation, and you have that.
Well, I think. But is the cumulative on page 108, the fourth chart down, does that give us a total, it says grant budget summary. I want to see where everything is
It's,
delineated.
well, I guess they could break down the 1288. What I think
that's-
you're interested in is the transportation fund and the parking fund supporting each other,
Yeah, I'm looking for exactly how much
relationship.
is going from
parking to
parking to
transportation.
transportation.
$1,430,000.
And that is.
Okay.
Where
I
the-
thought you said that was inclusive of something else.
And when you're looking at it from the parking fund side, you see money going out of the parking fund, and the amount is higher because there's another transfer in there.
Okay.
Each of those, and you may be able to see it on OpenGov. I'm not sure how much detail is there. If you click on that line in OpenGov, it should pop open and show you components.
Okay.
And it shows that in the capital budget, the funding sources.
Yeah, if you go to the
Yeah.
capital budget and you look at what's one of those parking improvement projects, there's you will see a PAYGO sourced funding source in the FY24 column for that project.
Okay. All right. And then my last question is just an information question. There's discussion about a portal, a transportation portal. Is there some interface budgetarily that we have with that, or the county putting in a transportation portal? It could be either at the mall or out at, am I dreaming? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, the county is working on the other side of the mall, Bestgate side.
Oh, okay.
A transit center, a hub.
Oh.
But that may still be at least a year and a half or more away. If they move, of course, we would move from Jennifer Road onto the other side, and that would be all the buses that came through here, which would be the commuters, 210, 215, Bolt bus or whatever it is, and the Greyhound. But that is in, I think, their plan for that area on the mall parking lot side. We have some drawings for that.
Okay. Colleagues, we're being flexible
good.
because we're going to go continuously here. Alderwoman,
Thank you so much,
Charles.
Alderwoman. Madam Chair, just one comment, excuse me, follow up on something that Alderwoman Finlayson mentioned. Last night, in fact, I received a very disturbing phone call from a very elderly resident who passed away, 2 sons within the past 18 months. Her grandson, who had one of the vehicles for his father, parked in front of her home to go to the bathroom. And when he came out, she said that he was given a $300 ticket.
We need to
So
revisit that.
I'm just kind of putting that out there.
yeah, it's for red line. We did that. Red line. and,
Thank you.
fire hydrants.
Thank you. We'll look into that. If you can give me more information, we can look into it.
I will try to get that from her today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The lady who was at Asbury, she said it wasn't even 6 inches on the red, and she had a $300.
Sometimes you can't see the paint. Okay. Oh, Alderman Gay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question is, I'm looking in the capital improvement budget, and I don't see mention of any of the bus stops in the 6th Ward, which is a high priority, in particularly in communities of color. I know that the Choice Neighborhood Initiative is going on, and they have a project that they have to do by November. And their focus is on the intersection of Madison and President, where they'll be expanding and doing some crosswork work there. You have that bus stop at the corner there. It needs a bench or some sort of shelter. And I think we talked about that last year. I hope that there'll be collaboration between the Transportation Department and the CNI team. I know Eric Lashinsky is working very close with them, just so that there aren't duplicated efforts. And also, if they are upgrading the, I think they're doing like sidewalk enhancement, et cetera. So you should be able to build off of that, hopefully, for the for bus stops. Additionally, I know that you'll have to go through some sort of process to pay for the additional land across from the Bay Ridge Gardens community. I don't see that as a requested study in the budget. I do see a requested study for other projects that have similar, where they have to pay for access to right-of-ways. Is that something that you may be prepared to help with an amendment for in this fiscal year?
Yeah, look, we were working on that. It's the one you're speaking of, right across from Ben's Drive. That easement that's butting up against the shopping center. I need to look back in the CIP with Marsha Patrick and see what we can do with that one, because that's not an ADA accessible bus stop as it stands right now. But let me work with them, Public Works, to see what's actually in there and what we can do. Because we have some other things that we would like to do further down long range, as we saw earlier in our presentation, about bus stop amenities. But I have worked with Eric Lashinsky with art in public places and things that he's trying to do with the CNI in Eastport neighborhoods.
Yeah.
So you're right, you want to make sure we're not duplicating the efforts, but how do we make sure things are, included?
Awesome.
Don't forget.
And I appreciate any follow-up. Our amendments are due the 15th, I think, or the 17th, one of the two. And so I'd like to, just be able to have a firm answer before then, just so that I can, because in the last budget, I mentioned this because, there are accidents there all the time. People get hit, kids get hit, and that area. They said that they would help with a crosswalk, but then they said it was a county issue. But then we met, myself, Director Gerald at the time, I think you were there, the entire team walked that property, and it was made clear that adjustments could be made from the city, whether it be signage, whatever. That never happened. And so either I'd like to see the bus stop be improved or some signage, something has to happen. I'm not sure. And I've been willing to, work with you all on an amendment, and just so please, before the amendment deadline. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Gay. Before we conclude general discussion, we just have one housekeeping issue. Thank you, you're done. Thank you so much. And welcome to the new department. How do you like it over there? Are they treating you well? Yeah.
She's really nice.
That's right, yeah.
All right, so we're finished with.
We're finished with you.
Thank
And
you.
take some goodies and, yeah. So our housekeeping item is on, what we're doing is we have some questions, follow-up questions, some good questions from Alderman Gay that would like discussed publicly with the office of the mayor's office. So we're asking if they could come back after Thursday, after the finance department presentation. Huh? Alderman Gay?
Yeah, we pretty much had in-depth discussion.
Yeah, but we have some follow-up
Oh, okay,
questions.
okay.
It shouldn't be long at all.
Right now
And just to make sure there's on staff. So could you, Caitlin, could you relay that
Invite
to
Kate
Kate?
to the meeting on Thursday.
Yeah, we're not going to take a lunch break. We're just going to take a break and go right to her. Okay.
Mr. Malinow?
Mr. Malinoff.
I yield to Director Dickens. It's a scheduling issue.
Yeah, if the session on Thursday goes longer than scheduled, we have a FAC meeting that afternoon. Remember, they scheduled one of their special meetings
What time is
Thursday
that?
afternoon at 2 or 2:30, sometime around there.
Yeah.
So I didn't know if you had intended that would tag on to the back, and then we would have to have staff here, because Katie and I are both going to be on
No.
that meeting, and perhaps even the city manager. So,
Is that Thursday?
yes.
Yeah,
Isn't there a work session on Thursday?
there's a separate work
At 3
session.
There's a work
Three.
session on some other topic, not budget related, and I'm going to have to attend the FAC meeting.
FAC asked for a separate meeting on debt affordability. We're going to have that ourselves.
That's
but they-
2:30.
It's
Right.
at 2:30, so it conflicts with our work session. But we will be done with the mayor's office well before then.
Okay.
So do you want to move the time up for the FAC meeting? Or you're only
Oh,
giving
no,
them
I
30
can't do
minutes?
that. I don't have the authority to do that.
No, that went back and forth and back and forth.
Yeah, they're trying to get together a special meeting, and for them, it's difficult because they all work outside.
We have a work session with them the following week.
Right.
Where we get together. This is just for their own purposes. We get that information from Jody directly, and they want the same.
So they will know they only have 30 minutes.
No.
I'm sorry, who?
I don't think Director Dickinson's going to go to our work session.
No.
Session is not on the,
It's not about the budget, it's got some other miscellaneous topics.
Yeah,
the one this week, I think.
she's going to fact.
Charter school.
Yeah, and 2 other things are on there.
Okay. All right, so we'll
wish I could
definitely
move.
finish.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be a virtual meeting, and I'll just have to go downstairs and get on my laptop, but.
Yeah, I mean, as Alderman Gay said, he had most of his questions answered. We just have some, am I correct? We have some follow-up questions with the mayor's office that shouldn't take long. So we'll be done, what's Thursday?
Madam Chair, we still have an essay also. Do
Yeah.
we not have to?
Yep, I just want to confirm
Yeah.
Thursday. Okay,
Before we get into our.
so let's ask for
schedule.
the mayor's office to come at noon on Thursday. Okay. So now we'll go to legislation, SA 20, that concludes our general discussion. Our last item on the agenda is the legislation that was postponed from yesterday, SA 25-23, General Fund, Office of Community Services, and it's a supplemental appropriation providing $10,000 of those appropriations to the Office of Community Services using the reserve for one-time uses.
Had we taken this up early on, we could have avoided a discussion with OEM, right? 'Cause
So,
this is
so
the money.
OEMs is for next year, all right?
Okay,
So this
okay.
essay was originally asked for this year. This is Alderman Gay's initiative to try to provide some temporary emergency housing needs. And this was submitted and then held. You wanted to hold it for consideration later after the budget was presented. So we would have an opportunity to talk about the emergency housing needs during the budget. So here we are. We talked about it today coincidentally, where we've budgeted for next year. And this essay is now up for consideration. That was requested for this year in case there's emergency housing needs. And that would be for fiscal year '23.
I have a quick question. When do we, for lack of a better word, when do we close the books, if you will, on supplemental appropriations for fiscal year 2023?
The last one could be voted on the last council meeting in June,
Okay,
so we can do it up through then.
okay.
And my question on this now, the 10,000, I don't know if we need 10,000 for this year, because we only have 2.5 months left, but if it's not spent, it just won't, it'll just fall to fund balance.
Okay. I'll do them in Finlayson.
I don't know why we would wait on this as a council. This is.
Finance Committee considered this essay a few weeks ago, and you decided to hold it until the budget was presented.
I understand. I heard you say that. I just don't recall why we were delaying it. So, okay, if we have questions, then Alderman Gay is here.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. My first question is, can you point me to where in the rules, Robert's Rules of Orders, or maybe in the city code, where a council member introduces a supplemental appropriation and the authority then is given to the body to change the dates of the supplemental appropriation or the intent of the supplemental appropriation?
I don't understand the question.
I presented this supplemental appropriation to be accepted in fiscal year '23.
Correct.
There were questions, which I was, happy to have answered and discussed with OCS and OEM.
Correct.
And so I was under the impression that the essay would still move forward in fiscal year '23.
Correct. That's what I was
Okay,
verifying.
well, I'm hearing, now that is the will of the body to move into fiscal year '24.
It had nothing to do with 2024.
No, we already have, in the proposed mayor's budget,
Okay,
we have 10,000 set up in OCS's budget for that purpose. We're just saying, if you want some for this year,
okay,
you
good.
have to have something set up for this year.
Well, that's what, okay.
This is for 2023,
Okay.
correct? I mean, is
But
that
that's
your
what,
intent?
that's what I asked, but I just thought I heard 24, so but essentially, what happened was that we had a number of domestic violence incidents and incidents involving violent crime, not just in my ward. because the incident that actually spurred this was in Ward 3. A young woman on Francis Knoll had just moved into the brand.
Please don't use names.
I'm not going to use her name, of course not. She had just moved into an apartment and it was shot up. She didn't have anywhere to go. She had reached out to the county. They didn't have resources available at the time. She had then reached out to Laura Gutierrez and OCS. We didn't have funding available because they don't have emergency discretionary funding to use in situations like this. Similar situations involving housing, we removed those because I knew that was a concern expressed from the alderwoman, where there are landlord-tenant disputes and reimbursements. That no longer applies to this. This fund is solely for, violent crimes, domestic disputes, legitimate emergencies. I took, very much to heart what you mentioned about, people sometimes, I know how it goes, they'll say that the landlord is doing one thing, and in reality, they may have the hotel already, et cetera. And we just don't want to get into those details, but we do want to be able to provide housing for people that are in, unfortunate situations at the last minute. This is half of what we give to Justin Beeler's group that the county runs. We give them $20,000 every year for a homelessness assistance and also with crisis response. So I'm happy to answer any other questions.
May I?
Alderwoman Finlayson?
Now that we're talking about this with more detail, what I recall is that we didn't have any parameters as to assist staff on how to, what qualifies as an emergency situation. And I don't know whether staff has done any work, or Mr. Malinoff might be able to help us. I mean, I don't have a problem with the funding. I do have an issue with us putting more on the two ladies in the Office of Community Caring. Do they get to just decide what situation is an emergency situation? We need some standards or something by which to measure, should it be a police report? I mean, I don't know. But I think that was the holdup. I am willing to support this with the understanding that those guidelines will be forthcoming, because there may be situations tomorrow that may warrant it. But we just need to have some guidelines on uses of these funds, these tax dollars. And your comment, we just started giving Justin Bueller funds. He has not always gotten funds because he has a tremendous budget from Anne Arundel County. And the other thing that you mentioned, crisis response, we give them $90,000 a year to allow one of our police officers work hand in hand with them. So to make sure that when there's a call, an Annapolis representative from APD is there. So those funds, and they still exist, but we have not always given funds because the county has a whole lot more money than we do. And we are part of the county when it comes to that department. Done. Thank you.
Alderwoman O'Neill?
So I also was the person that asked to push this forward as we were trying to get qualification standards. It is my understanding that there are other programs, social programs that happen, but don't happen until if this happens then. And I really think that that's important, not that somebody whose house has just been shot up is trying to be fraudulent and getting funds, but I do think that it needs to be clear and transparent how one gets it, as advertised, what the procedures are. Because I think that people often feel like either they don't know about a program or that the program is so detailed that they don't understand how to get the funds. So I do think I'm agreeing with Alderwoman Finlayson in that I am prepared to support this, but we need to make sure that prior to distribution that there is a list of qualifications and standards that are used. I just wanted to reiterate.
From the last meeting, the other concern, if you remember, was we didn't know if there was any duplication with the Office of Emergency Management. And I'm not really sure of the answer to that on their offering emergency housing. Do you have any? Yeah. Yes.
They offer, again, this is not homelessness prevention, what OEM primarily focuses in. This is if I'm in a situation, as I mentioned, where a random act of violence happens and the resources are not available for me to be housed safely. Obviously, if, somebody shoots up my house, I'll have a police report. If I'm getting, beat up by my husband, or in some cases, men beat up, or women beat up men, if I'm in a domestic dispute, I'll have a police report. All of these things can be tracked, and I think the Office of Community Services under Ms. Gutierrez's leadership and with Aaron Lee, they do a fantastic job of creating simple applications, just like we've done for our grant process, where people are able to, apply multilingual, input the information they need online, and it's transported to their ArcGIS system. They've got interns and a very good group that runs through all of that stuff and makes sure that when we're handing out funds, it's just not for the fun of it. And then on top of that, the finance department does a very good job of making sure that whenever a check is requested, that it is being sent out for the right purposes. What I discussed with Kevin, Director Simmons, before he stepped out, was that the funds would primarily be stored in OCS. OCS would handle any incidents that take place during the day. OEM would handle any incidents that take place during the night because they're 24/7. And so, his staff would be able to say, hey, this just happened on, Tyler Avenue. If a crisis response officer is called out, or if an officer or a fire department is called out, that can be communicated between our public safety teams. And he can use his card. Earlier told me that they can be reimbursed from accounts. And so they've had an opportunity to talk as well, I think briefly with Mr. Malinoff. I'm not 100. Okay. Yeah. And so I trust that the process can be established. And if necessary, the alderman from Ward 8 has made it that anytime policy changes, we have to write a record of it and have it published in the newspaper for 30 days. And so if anything changes in regards to policy and how this funding will be used, you'll be the first to hear about it.
I'm going to ask the city manager, I know he has his hand up as well, but I think the question is, does the Office of Community Services have the bandwidth to do this, and perhaps your opinion on where this should be?
They are ready. I've talked to Ms. Gutierrez about it, and frankly, with the new Assistant City Manager, Ms. Buckland here, is helpful in this matter because she had been Chief Operating Officer of that department in Montgomery County. So she'll be able to work with Ms. Gutierrez on creating any internal standards. And they've talked to OEM about off-hour contacts, and OEM can access the resource and be reimbursed by having the fund and community services. So she's ready.
And in reading the detail, Alderman Gay, it's basically for where we would house them, assuming there is available housing. What are you thinking, a hotel room or something accessible?
Definitely just hotel. I think one of the things that will have to be addressed in policy is a minimum night stay, because I think with any of the grants or funding that we create, I don't like to be in the business of, like you said, just splurging away with the taxpayers' dollars. And so I think 2 to 3 nights is appropriate, and particularly in domestic violence situations, there are so many barriers, that just make it difficult, and you need a couple of days to adjust. if the person is on the lease, they're entitled to come back to that home, you know? And so oftentimes the woman just can't escape. I hate to keep using this stereotype as a woman, but it's more prevalent. Then there are also situations where if you're trying to apply in the district court for like restraining orders and et cetera, just all of those things can get very messy. And I think in being someone who had experienced that, my mom was in a domestic violence relationship for 17 years. It is very confusing for children involved as well. And I think the most important thing is just being able to provide immediate, safe housing so that they too can go along with their daily lives with, you know, school, et cetera, while mom is trying to seek counseling or, you know, get to the district court to, you know, file that restraining order or get in touch with crisis response or whatever. I just think it'd be dangerous to, even in a shooting, to send someone back to that home so quickly.
So they'll have to be interfaced with the police department. I do remember going on a ride along, and it was a domestic abuse situation, and I distinctly remember the detective saying, "Just watch this. The woman will not come out. She won't come out. She's the one that made the call that she was being, attacked or whatever." And he said she's in there hiding, and he was right. So maybe if this gets out there and they know there's this resource. And that will take an effort with the APD, right? So, anyways, a motion, anyone?
I'll make a motion to give a favorable recommendation to the council for this SA 2523.
I'll second that.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that concludes our legislation, and I don't think we have anything else. And
Madam Chair, can we now talk about the schedule to see if we need, I know we added the mayor's office on Thursday.
Yeah, we're staying away from Fridays.
Oh, and we have to approve our minutes.
Oh, the minutes, yeah. The minutes from April 17th. Do I have a motion to approve the meeting minutes of April?
I move approval of the minutes from the April 17th meeting.
Thank you, Caitlin, for the hard copy. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, we're just going to discuss schedule here. We confirmed that the mayor's office is just going to do a quick comeback on Thursday after finance. And Monday, we have, we're asking if the police can come, if Alderman Finlayson has a conflict, so she's asking if we can flip it, if you will, and have the police come at 9:30 for the first segment, and then start community grants again at 10:45, and have them have 2 slots. But before then, we wanted to talk to Laura, right, on who you want to have come in for that second slot.
Well, there's 2 pieces to this. First of all, I am doing a trade fair at the high school on that day.
Yeah.
And it just didn't click that there's a conflict. So that morning from 9:30 until 2, we're doing a trade fair for the seniors who can come in and learn about internships, mentorships, summer job opportunities at Annapolis High School. It's geared towards seniors, but we will take juniors who are interested in a trade as a career. I have a lineup of representatives from every trade you can imagine, from HVAC to medical workers. That morning, the superintendent will join us, and then the governor's office will be there. His new secretary, Secretary Montero, who is the head of the department that will lead the new program to give graduates from high school a gap year of community service. It was announced about 2 weeks ago. And so I am hoping that they will take our Annapolis students as the first cohort of kids that will be employed for a year after high school. And then they get a stipend. I think it's about $3,000 after they finish the program. But it's geared towards seniors. And so we'll be honored. The secretary, I think, is supposed to be there. So anyway, all that to say, on the morning of the 24th, I have to be at the high school at 9:30. I'm going to try to stay there for only an hour and then come. And so if the police chief will present first, and then community grants, we need to talk to Ms. Gutierrez. If we're going to invite the applicants in, they need to be notified, and we have to decide how much time each is going to have, and when we want them to come in. So if we're going to do that, I think we need to do that today. So, because, Monday is right around the corner.
Yeah, I put that time slot in for you to do that.
So does that mean that you won't be here for the police presentation?
Yeah, you won't be.
I probably will not be here for the police
Yeah, will
presentation.
you have questions in advance?
Yeah, and I'm pretty familiar with the police budget, but if I have questions, I'll submit them or call in or whatever.
Okay.
But my big concern is not the police chief, because I'm sure he's going to be flexible with us. My big concern is, this time slot, which is not nearly sufficient for all of the grant applicants. We may have as many as 50. Will all of them want to come in? I don't know, but that will surely not accommodate them.
No.
So I'm not sure we need that. I think there may be another day we need to find. If you're really interested in hearing from the grant applicants, then we need to allocate more than an hour to do that.
Well, what if we gave the grant applicants the 3 time blocks on Monday? Because one, that would give them another week to invite, and have Laura or Erin Lee apparently reach out to them with a schedule of 10-minute presentations to see how many.
There's nobody going.
Because right now we don't have overflow.
City manager, do you know the status of that, of their selections?
Just for 2 days.
Is that Erin Lee?
I believe that they're completed, but I can't.
What? Community grants?
I'm sorry.
The community grant listing is an attachment to the budget ordinance, Appendix E, I think. You already have the recommended listing.
We have the committee's recommendation?
Yeah.
What page is it?
Sorry, it's usually later, that's why I assume we didn't
That's
have
why
it.
we didn't get.
Well, where we were trying to get them in time this year, and they really did work hard to get it done very quickly.
Okay, so
They did
which
it.
tab? I don't have it in.
Hold
They're
on.
not in the tab because there's nothing in the
Appendix
tab.
E.
There's your play plan, by the way. E.
Look in tab F, where we have the ordinance, and if you just
Oh, in the
flip,
back, okay.
it's all the way back in the back of that tab. It's the last schedule there.
So my
So it's tab F in your
I
binder.
got it.
It doesn't have a page number because it's one of the
Oh, so this is a
appendices
complete.
to the ordinance.
Yeah, this is what they're tasked to do. So my understanding, Alderwoman Finlayson, was we have this, and if we have any questions or concerns, we have time to bring in those respective applicants. My intention was not to redo this, to have them all, have the applicants been notified of this? No, have they?
Oh, wait a minute, these are not carved in stone. I mean,
Well, that's what I'm
No.
asking.
So I would, in order to talk about what specifically has gone between the committee and the applicants, I would ask Laura to come in here because I was not sitting in that group making those decisions. So they may say this is a tentative amount or something. They're not going to be notified of a final award until we're done with the budget process.
I think this is definitely out of order to have this in the book prematurely.
No, look
because
at
this
the
is-
columns. It says committee recommendation, and the last column is the council's, and that's where we switched around. We do this every year this way.
But usually, there's a column that indicates whether they had received previous year's grants, okay?
So we're trying to-
And
We can provide that information to you. There were so many columns in there, it got confusing, so we tried to simplify it. So you do have the 23 adopted there, but I think what she's saying is in the past years.
well, and now it, the total grant request is over $1 million.
Correct.
And I thought, and I had hoped that the Finance Committee would ask the committee to narrow this down to 20 or 30 grant applicants that we could address. And the idea and what we have done in the past, not the recent past, is to invite anybody who wants to come in and talk about their grant requests. The Grants Committee does not meet with any of the grant applicants. So there is no opportunity. And last year, I had lots of calls from people saying, well, when do we get to come in? And I had to say, you don't. You know, so that's something we should have discussed, but it should not, I don't feel, it should be in the book right now. I think it's very
It's always
premature.
been a part of the proposed budget from the mayor.
Not a breakdown.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, I'm not gonna
And
debate
last
it, but-
year, I think last year, we didn't have the list ready in time, so we brought it in as an immediate amendment and gave you the listing, but it's supposed to be in the introduced budget.
Who's
To
on
back,
Who's on the committee this year? Do we know?
it's Laura and Julie participated from my department again, my assistant director, and then,
Patty?
Tola was on the committee as well.
And was Patty on the committee?
I don't know, they,
And
so.
Aaron? Aaron was supposed,
Aaron.
had been heading it.
So there may have been back and forth with applicants. They did have the application package. If they had something they needed to ask regarding an application, I'm sure they would have reached out to the applicant to ask, to clarify. The only thing I do recall is they had many, many more requests this year. So what they tried to do was make room for more groups to get funding.
So, if I may, not really knowing how it was, you know, my understanding is in the code, and I'm looking at the city manager, in the code, it says this committee is formed to make their selections, they present them to us, and then we say yay or nay. What I've allowed this year is that having this list, if there's any questions on specifically certain ones, because we can't, I don't think we have time to bring all 50 in, and in fairness to the committee, that's what they were charged to do. But I think if Alderman Finlayson, having knowledge of these groups, has the opportunity to bring some in and question them. That's what I allowed the segments for. So could I, what? Go ahead. I saw a face.
I talked with Ms. Gutierrez a couple of times about the process and really was hands-off because they had the screening committee and she had an application process and she talked about a couple of people not turning in applications and what we should do. And I said, ultimately, you need to follow the rules and what your group has decided. My suggestion would be to have her and whatever representatives of her committee come forward and discuss it. Because if you have all 50 people plus, in my experience here, and I've seen it in all ways, is you will get a lot of other people coming too who want to all of a sudden apply.
So I'm not clear what you're saying.
I'm saying to have the committee, Ms. Gutierrez, come forward and go
Right.
through
To
their
schedule.
selection process and what they recommended.
Okay,
And
that's
perhaps
one day.
from that, you may have questions. And
That's right.
Right.
Okay. So we have time to look at this and then have questions and then ask Laura if we can bring some people in.
Right, she just emailed me about the previous essay and the process, and she's going to work on that. I just asked her who was on her committee beyond what we mentioned. So
Does
I
she
think
want-
that would be the way. She was on top of it. She did meet with me. She said this is what our recommendations
Does she
are.
want to come, can she come in right now or possibly?
I don't know that she's in the Vicky, could you check to
Monday's
see if
gonna
Laura's
sneak up
in? I
on us.
don't know if she's in the office. She was emailing me.
Madam Chair.
Laura,
What's your
who?
take on this? Do you understand what I'm saying?
About changing the time?
It's fresh air.
Sure. Yes.
It's
Yeah,
not
Madam Chair,
used
just
to the
going
bad
back
air.
to possibly the availability of the police chief. I know his sister passed away last week.
Oh,
And Deputy Chief Branford, is my understanding, is still out. So I don't know about the availability next week and the shifting, but I certainly can check.
okay.
We're sending, Ms. Johnson is sending an email to him to inquire as to his availability.
Okay, but I just asked for Laura to, because Monday's sneaking up on us.
Ms. Buckland's going to check. I didn't see her there earlier, so I can't. Sometimes she works from remotely.
Okay, okay. All right, so let's leave it. Do you have any questions, Alderwoman O'Neill, or comments about this? How would you like to see it done? I don't, or time-wise and,
I mean, I think that we should use Monday, the 24th's time to discuss the committee's
findings.
I think that we could then, if there were specific questions about perhaps even just the new ones, because it counted down and it looks like there's 12 or 14 new applicants, that perhaps then they could be brought back in on Monday, May the 1st. I have had to.
The following Monday, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah, not the same Monday.
Correct.
So we might.
I have had two community organizations who are new this year reach out to me and ask me about the process.
Yeah. So, hi, Laura Gutierrez with the Office of Community Services. We understand that you had a lot of applicants. We understand that you made your recommendations. We understand that it's in the budget book. Per the code, we're supposed to make our recommendations from that. And one of the concerns is, have you been in dialogue with all of these organizations?
So we just sent them an email saying we confirmed that we had received it, the process, they know it generally. And that's the only dialogue. More than that, we haven't told them that we are accepting, approving, just that they are received.
So in your presentation, you're going to tell us how you made your determinations?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Questions?
Yes. Was there any of the organizations that you brought in and met with or had specific questions for outside of their applications?
No, so we had over 50 applicants and a very short amount of time to go through all of that. So we divided up reading through the details of each application amongst 7 of us. So we all had about 7, 8 applications to look at. And then there weren't really questions beyond what we had already received. So we didn't reach out to any individual to seek further information.
Okay. And do you think if it were possible after next Monday's presentation by your committee, if we had specific questions or wanted to bring in specific applicants, that we could possibly do that for the following Monday?
That's your decision. I think that's fine.
Okay.
To
That would
invite
be
them.
May 1st? Is that your date? Yeah, which we would be in deliberations. Okay.
Madam Chair, we have 4 days indicated for deliberation, so I think if we're working on our reports as the departments present, we should be in a good place and afford a day.
Right, you're agreeing that we could use May 1st?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so let's just, on Monday, though, speaking to my colleagues, with that process where you're making your presentation and we just talk a lot about it, do you think we need 2 slots, or do you want to keep it the 2 slots? Do we want to give the police? I'm thinking out loud that maybe we start at 9:30 with the police and maybe give them 2 segments and then spend the afternoon with community.
I can't go past 1:30.
Madam Chair, I'm not sure we want to give the police 2 slots, because that's giving them twice as much time as everybody else. And I know that, and I work with Ms. Gutierrez and her department, how thorough they are with, you still have 2 interns?
Yep. Yes, we
that will be leaving on June 30th,
Yes.
who have been handling a lot of the contacts whenever anything is missing from applications and that kind of
Yes.
thing.
Okay.
They reach out to folks. But my interest had been in bringing in people who wanted time to present to the council. Okay, not necessarily if we have questions, I mean, that's appropriate also. But, they used to have a chance to come and talk about their respective programs. We're eliminating that, and I'm saying that I would like to make sure that anyone who would like to come in has that opportunity. And if May 1st is our date, that's great with me.
Could we use the second afternoon session if we put it out
On what day?
of the 24th?
We're on the 24th, Monday.
If Community Services uses the first hour session to give their presentation and report.
Well, we switched it, Alderwoman Finlayson is not here till 10:30, so we start community.
I'm good, though. You
Right.
do whatever.
No, that's what I'm saying. So the Community Services first session.
They're going to be presenting their process, right?
Well,
They're going to share with us their committee, who was on it, the rubric that they use to qualify the different organizations, their scoring system. That's what they're going to talk to us about, I think. Am I
Yes.
okay?
And we'll share, what we sort of came up with for the 52 applicants, then the decision will be yours as to what you will determine, if you want to have everybody receive funding or not.
So we'll turn
And
into
how
a
much to
discussion,
award.
that's why I think you should be here.
And I will be here
Okay.
as soon as I can get here. That's not a problem. I just don't want you to turn everything upside down just
Okay,
because.
so we'll police, we'll try to get in the morning, correct? And they've been notified, and then we'll start, community grants, at the second session. All right?
So I was asking though, in the second session, so the third session of Monday, the 24th.
Which we have. a
Which we
slot.
currently have a slot for community grants, so that's where I keep saying second session.
Right.
not
Yeah,
meeting.
yeah, I did give them
In the
two
third
slots.
session,
Yeah,
in the third slot where we have community, would it make sense for us to invite the 10 or 12 brand new applicants to that date?
that was
And
my,
reserving Monday, the 7th, first, whatever Monday is, Monday the 1st, for anyone else after that who wanted to sign up for a time slot, keeping in mind that depending on how many people sign up, we'll take that hour or
that was my,
divided by the number of.
We don't have that information, though. This chart does not tell us
Sure it
who the
does.
first-time recipients are.
Well, it tells
No,
us who
it-
didn't receive one in 2020.
Right, but
Right.
but they may have in 2022.
Okay.
So-
Director Dickinson told us that she could get us. the-
Right, and we have that, if we look in our old budget book, I guess, we could look at the page of who we gave grants to last year and the previous year.
Yeah.
It's a color-coded sheet that we got from,
so that was my intent in having the two slots sort of back to back. And so they present and how they decided and blah, 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 but we obviously will have some that we want to bring in. Will you know who those are by looking at this report?
And perhaps
Because,
what I was offering was that we put it out to them that there are slots, and if you would like to have a slot to present, if they want to talk to us versus us asking them questions.
Laura, I don't want to negate, here's my issue. I don't want to negate the work that you've done. I don't want to, so that's why I'm asking what kind of dialogue you've had with these applicants. So I'm hearing that we want to call some in the next session. Are there some that want to talk to us?
I can't speak for the organizations. That's a hard question.
So I'm not sure how you determine who those are, Carmen.
We asked them, do you want to present,
Thank you, Ms. Melna.
right?
One of the few advantages of having been here for a while is I've seen this process in many iterations. And I think I had mentioned this to Laura, but I was just telling Ms. Dickinson that it used to be a council review process.
Yeah, they used to come into the city
And
council.
frankly, if that's where you're heading again, then personally, I'm fine with that. But I think the difficulty is when you have staff review it and spend a lot of time and then undo it.
Yeah,
And I'm not saying you will, but that old process, I can vividly recall Classy Hoyle, Alderwoman Hoyle, and going through that and would hold meetings and bring people in. And if that's where you want to head, personally, I'm fine with it because I thought it worked and it created a lot of dialogue. So I wanted to throw that out, that if you're moving in that path, it's probably better just to move in that path versus having staff review it and then undo
well,
it.
I'm only saying that because that's the way it is in the code.
Right.
So,
No, and I just wanted to give you a little perspective because I
Yeah,
used to see
no.
it and you all used to be, and it worked.
yeah, okay. So, but I think that right now we're sort of into the
You're in the midst of it in this
midst of
fiscal
it, so
year,
let's try
right?
to make the best of it. And next year, we'll bring them all in before the council or something.
But what you would do is by committee, you would do it. Now, I would think, whatever the committee was that you choose to have review it, whether it's finance
Yeah.
or the like.
Yeah.
That may be what you want to end up doing.
Well, this might work
I
this
think
time.
strategically it makes sense this way, but if you're going to do it in 2 steps, then maybe it's
Well-
better for time just to do it the one way.
Well, I'm hearing Alderman Finlayson has knowledge of this, and so does Alderwoman O'Neill. And so I'm thinking that they are before the right committee. Ultimately, if they did report to the city council, it would inevitably come to us. So this is good. We just need to decide who we want to have come in that second slot, and I'll look to you guys.
Madam Chair, first of all, I'd like to remind us that the committee makes a recommendation to us. It becomes our document, just like the budget was the mayor's budget, and now it's our budget. Okay, so this isn't an affront to the committee if we disagree with their recommendations. And they will be the first to tell you that, I think,
Right.
because they did it in the past.
Agreed.
And so I think where we could get into some trouble is inviting people in. I say we make an all call, anybody who wants to come in and talk about their program, they're welcome to do so. But I am not comfortable with picking and choosing who should come in, because I don't think that's quite a fair approach. So,
Well, we have allowed that Monday, so I think it all boils down to hearing what you guys did.
Okay.
Okay, let's do that first and not commit to anything.
If I could just really quickly, I also think it would be impossible for the 8 of us to
Yeah.
agree on 50 organizations.
Well, that's what I mean. I think-
That would
I think it's before the
that'd be a
right
5-hour
committee.
work session in itself.
You're
so.
right. Because then we had 15 or 20
Yeah.
organizations, and they weren't broken down, so
Yeah.
it was a different process. So.
Yeah, so we're before the right place, so we'll hear you Monday.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Are we okay? Sheila, are we okay? We
I need
good?
to get going. I don't wanna-
I'm good. Is that the only day we had a conflict on? Did we decide what's happening this Thursday? The fact is coming in at 2:30 and then,
Next Thursday.
No.
oh, that's next Thursday?
This Thursday, we still have,
Yeah, don't.
we still have.
Okay.
Not public, yeah.
But y'all still have work
Back
session.
is just the information with Jody, that's nothing. We have, we decided to have Kate come in right after whoever the second one is.
Okay, so Kate is coming in on Thursday.
Is that, yeah.
Okay,
And then-
so the-
And continuous because we have a
Right,
work session
right.
at 3, unrelated to the budget. and
I
probably
know,
needs to
and
be-
one of them is mine that they requested an audience with us. Did we approve the minutes and everything?
Motion to adjourn, anyone?
Move to adjourn, second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Go home.